Hey guys! Tonight we journey to a world where temples crack under the sun, sandals squish through goat tracks, and everything, seriously, everything, smells like warm olives. You're going to stroll through a myth so slow, so mildly inconvenient, that you'll probably question how it even got written down in the first place. Welcome to ancient Greece, where one goddess, a misfired competition, and some accidental hygiene history collided to bring you olive oil shampoo. Before we dive into this lukewarm olive bath of a tale, remember, you're a mortal in a world where gods sulk for decades, curses are casual, and beauty standards include glowing foreheads and snake-themed accessories. You probably won't survive this story, but hey, at least you'll be moisturized. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love seeing our sleepy little community grow. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is how crunchy the air feels. Not dusty, not dry, crunchy, like biting into a cracker made of sun and limestone. You're standing in the middle of an unfinished temple on the Acropolis, surrounded by half-carved pillars and stonemasons arguing in ancient Greek about whose chisel is cursed. You've been walking for hours. Your feet ache. Your toga sticks to your back. But it's fine. You're just here to watch a contest between two gods who definitely take things way too personally. Athens isn't Athens yet. It's more like that rocky hill where people keep building things and then stopping. The city's still deciding what kind of deity it wants watching over it. Something stormy, something wise, maybe someone who smells like sea salt and pride. That's where you come in. Or rather, that's where the gods come in, with you stuck watching from the sidelines like a very sweaty extra in a toga drama. First up, Poseidon. He arrives the way you'd expect a sea god to arrive, on a chariot pulled by horses that are, confusingly, made of water. The sky clouds over, which is ironic because Poseidon never bothers with subtle entrances. Thunder rumbles, lightning flashes. One of the horses sneezes salt spray into a priest's eye. You sidestep the splash zone. Respectfully. Poseidon raises his trident, stabs it into the temple floor, rude, and voila, up erupts a geyser of seawater. Not sweet water, not holy spring, straight ocean. You know, briny, slightly fishy, very much not useful for farming, drinking, or even dramatic sipping. The crowd gasps, but not in a good way. One old farmer mutters something that translates roughly to, "Great! Now we'll have soggy wheat and seagulls." Historians still argue whether Poseidon genuinely thought saltwater counted as a gift, or if he was just trolling Athena. Either way, the show's begun. Poseidon turns to the crowd with that smug, damp look of someone who assumes everyone loves beach vacations. You can't help but notice his beard is crusted with tiny bits of coral. And is that a shrimp? No one says anything. He steps back, arms folded like a model on an amphora, and waits. Silence. Awkward. Tense. Someone sneezes. The geyser hisses. Then Athena walks in. No horses, no tridents, no weather theatrics. Just a steady, sandaled walk. As though she's been here the whole time watching Poseidon's dramatic one-man water show and taking mental notes. Her armor gleams. Her shield, polished to the point of vanity, catches a beam of sunlight and momentarily blinds a pigeon. She stops, scans the crowd, and very calmly kneels. You watch, squinting through the heat haze as she presses her palm to the earth. No thunder, no fanfare, just a seed. A heartbeat later, the ground trembles, but not the dramatic earthquake kind. More like something quietly waking up. The earth splits, just a hairline crack, and up rises a sapling. Leaves shimmer silver green, delicate and precise. Then comes the fruit. Small, dark, glossy olives. Dozens of them. And with them, the smell. It hits you before you see the reactions. A warm, peppery scent. Equal parts grassy and sharp. Like something you want to taste and wear at the same time. Somewhere in the back of the crowd, a goat bleats approvingly. You don't realize it yet, but you've just witnessed the invention of Mediterranean agriculture. The olive tree becomes sacred overnight, not just for food, but for oil, light, medicine, skincare, and apparently aromatherapy. Farmers swoon. Philosophers start philosophizing. A baker faints, possibly from the heat, possibly from excitement. Athena stands up, brushes dust from her knees, and, without even looking at Poseidon, walks away. No mic drop necessary. The city elders huddle. There's a lot of beard stroking. One of them starts drawing a chart in the sand. Pros and cons. Water that ruins soil versus olives that make soap and snacks. The decision takes all of 5 minutes. Athens is named after Athena. Poseidon sulks. You, meanwhile, are trying to inch closer to the tree. Something about it pulls you in. Maybe it's the shade. Maybe it's the hypnotic way the leaves catch the light. Or maybe it's because your scalp itches and this whole city still washes with sand and sea sponge. The thing is, no one fully understands how important this tree is yet. Sure, they get that olives are great with feta, but the oil, the oil, is about to become the most aggressively overused substance in the ancient world. First it's food, then it's lamp fuel, then medicine, then massage, then, well, people start rubbing it on places it doesn't belong. Knees, elbows, eyelids. That one guy who poured it into his shoes absolutely did not read the scroll. And as for Athena, she's watching all this from the clouds, mildly amused, until she realizes olive oil is hard to wash off. Like, really hard. Especially if you're an immortal with a full-time war schedule and only 3 tunics. One hot afternoon, after a minor skirmish near Sparta, she goes to push a strand of hair out of her face, and it just sticks. Greasy, shiny, stubbornly clinging to her helmet like it's auditioning for a toga soap opera. She frowns. That is not divine behavior. You, by the way, are still sitting under the olive tree, pretending not to listen to 2 farmers arguing over whether goats prefer black or green olives. You're also trying not to nap, but the air is soft now, humming with lazy insect wings, and the scent of crushed leaves is starting to lull you. A high-pitched scream breaks the peace. Someone slipped on an oil-slick step at the shrine. A priestess flails, sandals in the air, and lands with a dramatic thump. The olives roll. The pigeons scatter. Athena watches this whole scene unfold from her perch in the sky. Expression unreadable. Then she vanishes. You don't know it yet, but she's heading to her private temple bath. Something needs to be done. The goddess of wisdom is not about to be defeated by glorified salad dressing. Not today. You don't actually see Poseidon again for a while after the whole geyser versus tree fiasco. Rumor has it he stomped off to sulk in the bottom of the Aegean, where he's been rearranging coral and grumbling about disrespectful mortals ever since. But you can still hear him, sometimes. Every time the waves crash just a little too dramatically along the coast, or when a thunderstorm rolls in during an otherwise sunny day, someone always says, "Oh, that's just Poseidon being salty again." Literally, But the temple he struck with his trident, it's still there, sort of. The seawater geyser has subsided, though now the floor has this ever-present dampness that won't go away. It smells like someone boiled clams and forgot to clean up, and it's created the world's first ancient slip hazard. Priests start issuing sandals with little grippy soles. You find a scroll warning, caution, moist floor, divine wetness may occur. The thing is, Poseidon thought he was being generous. Historians still argue whether he truly believed Athens would want a gift that brings more ocean inland. Maybe in his mind, it was like giving someone a mini version of his underwater kingdom, a sort of luxury sea feature. What's a little brine between friends? It would have been different if he'd, say, conjured up a fish that glows or a magical pearl that grants wisdom. But no, seawater, from a crack in the rock. It sputters sometimes now, like it's trying to remember how to be impressive. Mostly it just steams in the afternoon heat, leaving behind streaks of salt and the occasional disappointed seagull. You stand near it, watching mortals sweep sand into the puddles. A group of temple workers has resorted to sprinkling crushed laurel leaves in the water, hoping the smell might improve. It doesn't. The result is an odd briny perfume that clings to your clothes like an accidental marinade. And yet, the shrine gets visitors, curious pilgrims, off-duty warriors. One poet who insists the salt air clears his inner chaos, then promptly faints from dehydration. As for Poseidon, his temper flares again when he hears that the Athenians are already using olive oil from Athena's tree to polish statues and cook stew. There's even talk of using it as hair oil. This is deeply offensive to a sea god. Everyone knows salt is for seasoning, not second place. One night, Poseidon decides to make a point. You're just dozing off in a shady patch near the temple, finally finding a breeze that doesn't smell like roasted goat, when a thundering roar jolts you upright. The ground trembles. A huge shape rises from the sea below. A monstrous stallion with sea foam for a mane and hooves that splash salt water onto the cliffs. It climbs the rocks, neighing like thunder, eyes glowing with ocean rage. Poseidon, riding bare-chested on its back like he's posing for a mosaic, shouts something about respect and naval superiority. His beard sparkles wetly in the moonlight. Honestly, he looks fantastic, if a bit theatrical. The horse rears dramatically on the temple steps. Then it slips. With a squelch, the beast's hooves slide on the still damp stone. Remember that geyser stain. And Poseidon, lord of the seas, god of floods and quakes, goes flying off in a tangle of limbs and trident. He lands in a surprisingly graceful crouch. His expression is unreadable. A silence falls across the shrine. You swear a crab scuttles by, holding its claws over its eyes in embarrassment. Poseidon straightens up, flicks seaweed from his shoulder, and without saying a word, disappears into a mist of brine. The next day, someone carves a little horse warning sign into the temple wall. You don't know it yet, but that moment will inspire centuries of nervous sculptors to always double-check their footing near fountains. Meanwhile, Athena, from her less soggy vantage point on Olympus, watches this all play out with an increasingly smug expression. Not because she's petty, well, okay, maybe a little, but because her olive tree just started producing its second round of fruit. And someone down there has discovered that if you press the olives carefully, the oil comes out way smoother. It's not long before the shrine smells less like salty tragedy and more like a luxury soap store. Merchants arrive with clay jars and linen cloths. They whisper about this miracle oil that heals cuts, shines armor, and might even make your goat smell slightly less like goat. One shepherd swears he rubbed it on a sprained ankle and saw a ghost. That part's not relevant, but it does add to the mystique. And here's where the myth gets blurry. Some say Athena intended all of this, that she gave the olive tree to help civilization grow. Others claim it was a prank, a way to win the city's loyalty and show up Poseidon in one elegant, sap-laced move. But there's also a stranger theory. Fringe scholars in later centuries speculate that the olive tree wasn't the real gift. It was the ritual around it, the care, the cultivation, the slowing down to tend something living. In a world of storms and monsters, Athena offered patience. Anyway, back to the oil. You're walking through the early agora, just a few dusty stalls and a bored goat chewing on a toga hem, when someone hands you a tiny amphora. It's sealed with wax, painted with a slightly wonky picture of an olive branch. For skin, the seller says, or meat, or feet. We're still deciding. You sniff it, earthy, a bit sharp, definitely not for drinking straight, but maybe for rubbing on your elbows? Your feet are blistered, so you try it there. It works. Across the city, olive oil starts showing up everywhere. In lamps, in food, on babies. One brave merchant suggests bottling it with crushed herbs and selling it to Spartans as a battle polish. Surprisingly, it takes off. Now there are rumors of hoplites gleaming in the sun, terrifying enemies not with swords, but with their dazzling shins. At this point, you're starting to suspect the olive oil may be cursed, or enchanted, or both. You walk past a temple guard who's dipping his spear tip in the stuff. Just a little protection spell, he says. Keeps it shiny. His spear is also now a fire hazard. Then you hear it. A loud splash. A frustrated voice. The clatter of armor. You follow the noise toward a small bathing area tucked behind the main temple, half private, half mythical. And there she is, Athena herself, not glowing, not floating, just standing ankle-deep in a marble tub, muttering something unrepeatable under her breath as she tries to get olive oil out of her hair. It's everywhere. Her helmet lies beside her, glistening like a salad bowl. Her braids hang heavy and limp, shining like polished vines. You watch as she tries again to rinse it out with water from a nearby urn. It beads on the surface and slides off like the oil is actively mocking her. Even a goddess has limits. She groans, picks up a square of linen, and furiously rubs at one temple. It squeaks. You retreat before she notices you gawking. Back into the shade of the olive grove. Back to the soft buzz of bees and the distant clang of artisans discovering that olive oil makes bronze polishing weirdly slippery. Back to the subtle realization, the world is changing. Because Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, just lost a battle to conditioner. You wake up the next morning with a patch of grass stuck to your face and the unmistakable feeling that something divine is about to go terribly, hilariously sideways. It's not a lightning in the sky or flaming chariot kind of vibe. More like the uneasy silence before a pigeon poops on your head. Somewhere, you suspect, Athena is still trying to rinse olive oil out of her hair. The morning smells like figs, dust, and mild panic. In the agora, a handful of sleep-deprived scribes are arguing over how to spell Athena's miracle oil on clay pots. One of them insists it should be called Divine Extract of Victory. Another suggests Olea Gold, TM. A third proposes Battle Grease and is promptly voted out of the discussion. You wander past a booth where a potter is selling tiny ceramic busts of Athena, each with deliberately shiny hair. It's the start of a trend. Everyone's talking about her divine glow. No one dares admit it's just olive oil she couldn't wash out. Historians still argue whether this phase, the shiny Athena era, was fueled by admiration or irony. Either way, it's clear the city is obsessed. Meanwhile, Athena is not amused. You hear the gossip first from a temple apprentice whose job is to scrape wax drips off statues. According to her, Athena's been experimenting with everything: volcanic pumice, barley powder, even goat milk. Nothing works. The oil remains. It clings to her hair like a stubborn metaphor. Worse, the harder she scrubs, the shinier it gets. Birds keep trying to nest in her bun. So she does what any exasperated goddess would do. She builds a secret lab. Okay, maybe lab is too strong a word. It's more of a sacred alcove tucked behind the library of Alexandria's lesser-known cousin, the small, slightly damp archive of Athens. It's where failed scrolls go to die. The place smells like mildew and overachieving. Athena repurposes it into a makeshift test chamber. You're not invited in. No one is. But you sneak past a dozing philosopher one evening and peer through a crack in the wall. Inside, chaos. Controlled, olive-scented chaos. Clay jars line the walls, each labeled with ingredients in tight, perfect script. Ash of fig tree, fermented honey water, pulverized lavender stems, probably poisonous. One jar simply reads, "Do not touch," and is slowly smoking. At the center of the room, Athena hunches over a basin, hair pinned back with bronze combs, a look of sheer determination on her face. She stirs something green and goopy with a reed. You watch as she carefully lifts a handful and massages it into a test strand of hair. Steam rises, a fizz, a sizzle. She jerks back, then leans closer. The strand is soft, not sticky, not glowing, just clean. Your gasp is too loud. She turns, eyes narrow. For a second, you think she'll smite you on the spot, but instead, she sighs, waves you in. "Close the door," she mutters, "and don't step on the garlic toad." You obey. From this extremely privileged and mildly terrifying position, you become the first mortal ever to witness the accidental invention of olive oil shampoo. It doesn't start as shampoo. It starts as a desperation balm, a paste she hoped would neutralize the oil and restore her ability to braid without greasing her armor. But as she tests it, tweaks it, adds a few drops of lemon rind and crushed bay leaf, something changes. The mixture foams. Just a little. You're sent to fetch more ingredients. Violets, rainwater, even a rare salt from Mount Hymettus beeswax vats. At one point, she instructs you to go see if that one market herbalist still has the yucky yellow flower that smells like socks. You return with chamomile. She's delighted. And when it finally happens, when she mixes the perfect ratio, applies it to her scalp, and rinses it out to reveal clean, smooth, goddess-tier hair, there's a moment of silence. Even the garlic toad seems reverent. She touches a comb to her now clean curls and smiles. Not smugly, not triumphantly, just satisfied. Like someone who beat a riddle only she was trying to solve. Of course, she doesn't tell anyone. Instead, she tucks the formula into a sealed amphora and places it behind a false panel in the wall. "Mortals aren't ready," she murmurs. "They'd put glitter in it." You return to your usual life. Olive tree maintenance, scroll sorting, trying not to be trampled by horses. But something shifted. Athena, formerly aloof and entirely war-focused, now starts hanging around the temple bathhouses, just a little more often. She doesn't say much, just hums quietly, while applying a very subtle herbal rinse that everyone pretends not to notice smells incredible. And then, slowly, imitators appear. First, it's a young apprentice who claims she accidentally mixed rainwater and olive pulp, and now has the softest elbows in the polys. Then it's a merchant hawking something called Athena's secret, which is suspiciously chunky and possibly fermented. The city's wealthier citizens begin demanding perfumed oils. Bath attendants are hired for their skill in scalp massages. Someone invents a tiny sponge tied to a stick, dubbed the forehead polisher. It flops in the marketplace. Still, the movement grows. Even the Spartans get involved. They start oiling their hair before battle. Not for hygiene, mind you, but because it terrifies the enemy. Nothing is scarier than a man who conditions before combat, says one hoplite. You now live in a world where hair rituals matter more than chariot brands, where olive presses run through the night, where artisans argue about the ideal texture for bathhouse loofahs, and Athena. She watches it all with the cool detachment of someone who created a cultural phenomenon and refuses to take credit. Historians still argue whether she meant to start a beauty revolution or just wanted to not smell like a salad. But let's talk about you for a moment. You've started experimenting with your own mixtures. A little honey, a dash of rosemary. You even try a clay mask that Athena might have muttered about once when she thought no one was listening. The first time you apply it, your skin feels like it's being hugged by the earth itself. Of course, there are mishaps. You overheat a paste and end up gluing your eyebrows together. You drop a jar labeled minty cleansing potion and sneeze for a full hour. But you also invent something that feels soothing. Not divine, maybe, but close, like peace in a pot. And as night falls over Athens and the moonlight glints off freshly rinsed curls and shoulders slick with oil, you begin to understand. This myth was never about who won. It was about what was left behind. An olive tree, a bath formula, a new way to care for the self when gods grow silent and sandals wear thin. Athena may not sign her name to her invention, but every amphora of calming rinse, every gentle scrub of fragrant oil, every whispered recipe passed between friends in the quiet of the evening. Those are her fingerprints. And they're everywhere. You're in the market again, 2 weeks later, and things have gotten slippery. Not metaphorically, literally. The whole agora smells like pressed olives, singed rosemary, and ambition. Clay amphorae crowd every stall, each boasting miraculous new blends. Eros's hair elixir, Demeter's scalp dew, and a rather concerning Hydra oil. 7 ingredients, 7 effects. Someone's even bottled something called combat conditioner, endorsed by a man with very shiny armpits and a slightly haunted expression. It's the golden age of grooming, and you, reluctant witness to the original recipe, are now knee-deep in a civilization that's bathing more, combing more, and accidentally slipping down marble steps at record rates. The Temple of Athena is unofficially rebranded, at least among the fashionable, as the Shrine of Shine. You hear teenagers whispering that if you offer enough olive branches, she'll bless you with eternally defrizzed curls. One boy swears she appeared in his dream and scolded him for using too much oil. She said, "Moderation is wisdom," he insists, while smoothing down his bangs for the 5th time. You're skeptical. Athena doesn't usually do beauty tutorials in dreams, but she is watching. From her high perch on Olympus, or more often now, from the edge of her temple roof, where she sits cross-legged with an owl and a scroll, Athena surveys this strange new cult of hair care with mixed feelings. The olive tree thrives, the amphorae multiply, and somewhere deep in her secret lab, the original formula rests, sealed tight and unglittered. Still, not all reactions are positive. The old-school philosophers are deeply annoyed. At the school of Stoics, where the only acceptable emotion is a raised eyebrow, Socrates Jr., no relation, but he claims spiritual kinship, grumbles over the latest shampoo craze. The mind is more important than the mane. He sniffs while combing olive twigs out of his beard. He delivers a speech in the square about how personal grooming weakens civic discipline. Halfway through, a breeze lifts his robes and reveals extremely moisturized knees. You never look at him the same way again. Some temples protest. They say vanity is creeping in, that mirrors are being worshipped more than gods, that too many prayers now begin with, "Please fix my split ends." One priest warns that Ares is furious about the popularity of lavender rinse and may release war dandruff in retaliation. Spoiler: war dandruff is not real, but the fear is enough to spark a brief trend in helmet liners made of beeswax and bay leaves. Historians still argue whether this backlash was genuine concern or simply professional jealousy. Whatever the motive, the tension is rising. And then, the incident happens. It starts with a noble's daughter, Callista, glowing, high-cheekboned, and dangerously bored. She gets it into her head that if a little olive oil is divine, then a lot must be transcendent. So she commissions a bathtub-sized amphora from a sculptor named Krinos, who has never built a container that large, but is too flattered to say no. The result? A 6-foot-tall ceramic disaster with embossed dolphins and absolutely no drainage. Callista fills it with a mix of oil, rose water, and something suspiciously purple, then invites all her friends to an exclusive divine soak party. It's a hit, until the third guest slips, falls into the vat, and emerges so coated in oil that she can't be hugged for 3 days. One guest panics, sets a towel on fire, and accidentally creates a new form of scented smoke. By morning, the whole block smells like lavender arson. Athens responds the way any respectable city would. They hold a symposium. You attend, of course, mostly for the free olives. The gathering is packed with philosophers, bathhouse owners, potion makers, and one very confused goat that wandered in during the opening remarks. The keynote speaker is an elderly priestess who opens with, "The gods gave us cleanliness, not chaos." A younger apothecary counters with, "Clean hair is the path to inner peace." Then someone yells, "My cousin hasn't stopped exfoliating for 3 weeks, he's gone translucent." It escalates quickly. A stoic throws a sandal. A beautician retaliates with a rosewater spritz to the eyes. Someone tries to quote Hesiod but forgets the ending. You duck as a scroll flies past your head and lands in the olive dip. Eventually, the owl arrives. Yes, that owl. Athena's familiar, normally quite content to peck at temple mice and judge everyone silently, swoops into the symposium with a screech that silences the room. Then, slowly, with eerie purpose, it drops a small clay tablet in the center of the floor. You step forward, heart pounding, and read it aloud. It's a decree etched in Athena's unmistakable handwriting. Balance is beautiful. Oil is sacred, not slippery. If you soak in a vat again, I will personally hex your elbows. The room nods. The goat bleats solemnly. From that day forward, things settle a little. The olive oil boom doesn't end, but it mellows. Amphora sizes become more reasonable. Rinses are diluted with care. People begin exchanging recipes in hushed tones, not shouting them from rooftops. And Athena? She relaxes, just a little. Now, at sunset, she sometimes wanders the olive grove in person, her hair tied in a simple braid. her sandals dusted with petals. Mortals still don't approach, except for you, of course. You sit quietly, far enough not to intrude, close enough to feel the warmth of the trees she gave them. Sometimes she hums. And one evening, as the cicadas drone and the city fades into its evening hush, she turns to you. Do you know why I chose the olive tree? You shake your head. She smiles. Because it grows slowly, but it never stops, even in poor soil. Even under pressure, it lasts. Then she vanishes again, leaving behind only a crushed blossom and the faint scent of bay leaf and clean earth. You walk home in silence, olive wind at your back, thinking maybe, just maybe, wisdom can wear conditioner. You wake the next morning to the soft sound of someone raking pebbles outside your window. It's the new city beautification crew, funded, you suspect, by nobles who've grown addicted to the feeling of freshly exfoliated temple steps underfoot. Even the streets are being scrubbed these days. You pass a man polishing a marble goat statue with lemon balm and a very serious expression. It seems the olive oil era has matured. Athens now glistens, not from war trophies or golden laurels, but from an overwhelming, all-consuming, slightly comical obsession with natural shine. You'd think this might lead to a certain peacefulness. Clean people are happy people, right? Well, yes and no, because nothing in this city ever stays simple for long. And a new question has emerged, whispered from bathhouse to symposium. Where exactly did Athena get the idea? You freeze the first time you hear it. You're standing in line for plum pastries when a woman in an embroidered peplos leans over and murmurs, "Do you think she had help?" You shrug. She leans closer. They say a nymph gave her the recipe. Others say she found it carved into a cave wall on Crete. Her eyes widen. Or that it came in a dream from Asclepius himself. It spreads like wildfire. This question, this urge to rewrite the origin story. Historians still argue whether this was driven by genuine curiosity or just that age-old Athenian urge to complicate things. But either way, it's clear. No one's satisfied with Athena got olive oil in her hair and figured out how to fix it. Too mundane, too mortal. So begins the great lore boom. Suddenly, everyone's inventing prequels. Scrolls appear detailing ancient recipes from Atlantis. Oracles start offering ancestral hair consultations. One priest claims to have found a fresco showing Medusa brushing her snakes with argan oil. You sigh, because of course, none of this is true. You were there, remember? You saw Athena's first foaming batch bubble in a clay bowl behind a half-collapsed bookshelf. You saw her test strand dry, soft, and clean. But you also get it. People want magic. They want mystery. They want their shampoo to have meaning. So you watch as myth after myth blooms across the city like wild thyme in spring. One story claims the formula was a gift from the forgotten muse of moisture, named Curlina. Another insists that a talking dolphin delivered the recipe during a storm. A dramatist stages a play where Hephaestus tries to invent shampoo but sets himself on fire, and Athena saves the day. It gets a standing ovation. The truth, messy, accidental, and surprisingly human, gets buried under glitter and grandiosity. Still, Athena says nothing. She watches the myths grow with a neutral gaze. Once, you find her sketching tiny caricatures of the muse of moisture in the corner of a parchment. She adds a headband that says, "Moist for life," and hands it to you without a word. Then comes the scroll war. It starts small, a debate between two herbalists about whether mint or thyme is the true sacred clarifying herb. Within days, rival pamphlets are everywhere. One reads, "Mint purity. The other screams, "Thyme is divine." You see children chanting it in the streets. Market stalls start organizing by camp. Team Mint only accepts payments in freshly cut sprigs. Time over time refuses to speak to anyone with green-stained hands. It's funny at first. Then it gets real. A philosopher's assistant pours time-infused oil into the wrong bathhouse basin and is publicly pelted with old loofahs. A mint vendor's cart is mysteriously overturned outside the Temple of Artemis. An anonymous scroll accuses the Time Crowd of adding crushed beetles to their blends. Athens is now a city divided. You find Athena one evening at her olive grove, barefoot and frowning. "I gave them something simple," she says. "Gentle, kind, a way to take care of themselves." She looks out over the hills, and they turned it into a branding war. You hesitate. They mean well. Do they? You're not sure how to answer. She walks into the grove, brushing her fingers along the leaves, letting the wind thread through her braid. "The worst part," she mutters, "is the puns." You nod. There are many puns. At least 3 shops are named Time Will Tell. One poet published a deeply romantic sonnet titled Ode to My Minty Muse. The local graffiti now includes slogans like "Oil be back" and "Split End Times." Eventually, the city council steps in. They issue an official decree neutralizing both camps by establishing a standardized olive oil ritual formula to be used in all public bathhouses. It includes mint and thyme. Peace is restored. Sort of. You return to your routine. Quietly. You still have the memory. The real memory. The steam. The hiss. The fizz. That first miraculous lather in Athena's hidden lab. But one evening, as you light your oil lamp and settle into your modest stone home, something curious happens. A knock. You open the door and find a satchel sitting on your step. Inside is a scroll, sealed with wax, no markings, no signature. You unroll it. It's the original formula, Athena's. You know it instantly. Her handwriting, her measurements, her odd side notes. Optional, dash of fig ash, if emotionally ready. You run your fingers across the ink. Below the last line is a message. Not for sale, not for fame, just for the days when you need to feel soft again. Your chest tightens. You fold the scroll and place it gently on the shelf. That night, you wash your hair by candlelight, carefully, slowly, like a prayer whispered into steam. The blend is subtle, nothing flashy, just soft, clean, real, like the sound of olive branches brushing each other in the dark. You sleep well for the first time in weeks, because sometimes the truth doesn't need a prequel. Sometimes it just needs to be remembered. The morning air is cool and crisp as you wander toward the marketplace, but something feels different. The city pulses with a quiet undercurrent, like it's holding its breath. The usual hustle of merchants calling out their wares seems tempered today, perhaps by the dawn's soft light, or maybe by a subtle shift in the city's mood. You notice fewer stalls bursting with the heady scents of exotic herbs and fragrant oils. Instead, merchants display simpler wares: fresh figs, olives, rough spun linen, and baskets of wildflowers. The once chaotic marketplace now hums with a quieter energy, a prelude to something new. Athena's olive oil craze, which had gripped Athens with such fervor, has settled into a more measured rhythm. The city still gleams softly, bathed in the subtle sheen of olive oil rituals, but the frenzied rush to cover every strand and skin cell has mellowed. Still, beneath this calm surface, you sense an undercurrent of change, a budding innovation just waiting to break through. It's the kind of shift that feels inevitable once you glimpse it, like the first bloom of spring after a long winter. You overhear a conversation nearby between two bathhouse attendants, their voices a blend of curiosity and skepticism. "Have you heard about the new cleanser the foreign merchant brought from Egypt?" one asks, carefully folding her linen cloak against the morning chill. "Soap?" the other replies, wrinkling her nose. "That greasy, foamy stuff? I don't know if it'll ever catch on here. Our people love their olive oil too much." You pause, intrigued. Soap. That slippery, sudsy substance that smells faintly of animal fat and wood ash. It's been known in parts of the world for centuries. Egypt, Babylon, even the far reaches of Mesopotamia. But here in Athens, it remains a curious novelty, overshadowed by the city's obsession with glossy, fragrant olive oil treatments. The attendants debate its merits. One insists soap is too harsh, stripping away the very oils that make skin glow and hair shine, leaving behind dryness and discomfort. The other argues that soap cleanses more deeply, promises freshness unlike any oil could offer, and heralds a new era of hygiene and self-care. You listen, fascinated, as they exchange stories of travelers who swear by soap's cleansing power, while locals cling to the time-honored olive oil rituals. Historians still argue whether soap's introduction to Athens was welcomed as a complement to or a competitor against the olive oil grooming tradition. Some suggest the city viewed soap with suspicion, an alien product that threatened to upset the delicate balance of their beauty practices. Others argue that soap slowly gained acceptance, appreciated for its unique qualities, and eventually woven into the tapestry of Athenian self-care alongside oil and herbs. Your curiosity pulls you closer to the bustling bathhouse district, where the chatter grows louder about a foreign merchant recently arrived with this strange new cleanser from Egypt. Rumors swirl that it lathers and foams unlike anything the city has seen before, and promises to wash away the grime and fatigue of city life in minutes. The idea of rinsing away dirt instead of massaging it out with oil must have seemed revolutionary, and perhaps a little intimidating. The local potters and apothecaries are not sitting idly by. They begin experimenting with blending olive oil and soap, hoping to create gentler, fragrant concoctions that combine the best of both worlds. A young apprentice proudly claims that the perfect shampoo balances oil for softness, soap for cleanliness, and herbs for healing and fragrance. You recall Athena's words about balance and think it fitting that her legacy would inspire this middle ground, blending tradition with innovation. Inside a nearby bathhouse, you glimpse a scene unfolding. Men and women nervously trying soap for the first time. They scrub and lather, their skin glowing with freshness, but tinged with the confusion of learning a new ritual. Some grimace as the foam bubbles over, while others laugh at the strange sensation of rinsing clean for once. It is a tentative dance with a new practice. A poet seated near the fountain composes verses about the foam that frees, likening it to the breaking waves of the Aegean Sea, cleansing and renewing all it touches. A sculptor works on a small statue depicting a goddess holding a bubbling soap dish, a subtle tribute to Athena's gift and to this emerging tradition that challenges and complements it. As always, the philosophers weigh in. Some praise soap as a symbol of progress and purity, a step forward in the quest for personal and civic cleanliness. Others lament what they see as the loss of natural oils, fearing that the city may become sterile and cold. stripped of its natural warmth and sheen. You chuckle quietly, thinking back to the chaotic amphora parties, the war dandruff scare, and the puns that nearly brought Athena to her wits' end. If only the philosophers could see the gentle, foaming beginnings of this new chapter. And yet, beneath the sudsy debates and fragrant arguments, the truth remains simple and universal. People want to feel clean, cared for, and just a little bit divine. Later that afternoon, you wander back toward the olive grove, seeking solace amid the familiar branches and dappled light. There you find Athena once again, sitting quietly on a stone bench beneath the trees. Her gaze is fixed on the horizon, and a faint smile plays on her lips, the same gentle spark of wisdom that first led her to nurture the olive tree itself. "Change is the only constant," she says softly when you approach, "even in hair care." You nod, understanding that while formulas may evolve and trends may rise and fall, the human desire for beauty, balance, and care will endure. You prepare to leave but catch a faint scent on the breeze, a curious blend of olive, thyme, and something new, the fresh, crisp aroma of foam. The city moves forward, one sudsy step at a time. You wake early to the sharp clang of bronze echoing from the city gates and the inviting aroma of fresh bread baking in nearby ovens. The narrow stone streets of Athens begin to fill with the familiar bustle of merchants setting up stalls, children chasing each other past fountains, and the faint chatter of philosophers already debating the meaning of life over bitter herbal tea. Yet beneath all this morning noise is a new kind of hum, a buzz of anticipation, like the quiet before a storm or the soft crackle before a festival fire. Today is different. Word has spread like wildfire that a grand symposium is to be held, not about war or politics, but something far more personal: the art and science of cleanliness, grooming, and the mysterious new soap that has started to compete with Athena's olive oil in the city's beauty rituals. This gathering promises to bring together the city's most esteemed minds: philosophers, herbalists, poets, perfumers, and even a few sharp-tongued merchants, each ready to debate, demonstrate, and decide the future of Athens's daily rituals of self-care. You decide to attend, intrigued by the unusual topic and curious to witness how a city so steeped in tradition might handle this unexpected challenge to its beloved olive oil. As you approach the amphitheater, the buzz grows louder. The stone seats are already filling with an eager crowd, some dressed in their finest togas, others in simple tunics dusted with the morning's flour. The air is thick with anticipation, mixed scents of wild thyme, fresh laurel leaves, and faint smoke from nearby incense burners. You find a place near the edge, close enough to catch every word, but far enough to disappear into the crowd, a silent observer of what feels like a momentous occasion. The symposium opens with the appearance of a renowned herbalist, a woman whose knowledge of plants and oils is respected across the city. She steps onto the platform, her voice steady and melodic, and begins to extol the virtues of olive oil. She speaks of its nourishing qualities, its ability to soothe skin and strengthen hair, and its sacred connection to Athena herself. You catch a curious fact slipped in almost casually. Did you know that the olive branch once served as an ancient kind of comb, its sturdy twigs carefully used to detangle and smooth hair? She holds up a small vial of oil infused with wild thyme, claiming it to be the secret to radiant, healthy locks, and the crowd murmurs appreciatively. Then, with a sharp contrast, a young and somewhat brash perfumer strides forward. His confidence is palpable as he brandishes a gleaming bar of soap imported from Egypt, a product said to foam and cleanse, unlike anything native to Athens. Demonstrating its lathering properties, he insists that this miracle cleanser is the future of hygiene, a revolutionary leap that will cleanse the city of both dirt and ignorance. The crowd responds with a mix of cheers and whispers, some thrilled at the prospect of innovation, others skeptical or even outraged at the challenge to their traditions. As the debate heats up, it becomes clear that this is more than a simple disagreement about grooming products. Historians still argue whether these symposium debates were earnest discussions about progress or public theater masking deeper tensions between the old aristocratic families clinging tightly to tradition and younger merchants eager to push Athens toward change and commerce. You listen closely as voices clash like the sharpening of blades. The herbalist accuses soap of being harsh, a thief that steals the city's natural glow and leaves behind dryness and discomfort. The perfumer fires back, arguing that olive oil alone traps grime and that true cleanliness requires a thorough rinse with suds. A philosopher rises, surprising the audience with a perspective that cleanliness is as much a moral and civic virtue as a physical state, an idea that stirs quiet reflection in the crowd. The debate ebbs and flows, revealing a rhythm of respect for the past mixed with a restless yearning for something new, something better. Then, as if summoned by the rising tension, Athena herself steps forward. The murmurs hush into silence. Her presence commands attention, not with grandeur, but with a calm authority that settles the room like a gentle breeze over a heated argument. She speaks softly, but with undeniable clarity, reminding everyone of the importance of balance in all things. Cleanse, nourish, and care. Each has its place. Let us not be prisoners of purity or tradition, but seekers of harmony. Her words drift through the amphitheater, soothing and wise. The crowd absorbs her message, and a shared understanding seems to take root. Athens's beauty rituals are not about choosing one method over another, but about weaving old wisdom and new discoveries into a tapestry that reflects the city's soul. After the symposium concludes, you wander through the marketplace where the day's excitement lingers. You pass a small stall run by a craftsman proudly offering a curious new creation, a soap infused with olive oil and wild thyme, designed as a gesture of peace between the traditionalists and the innovators. You buy a bar, intrigued to try this latest blend that honors both camps. As the sun sets, casting long shadows over the city's stone and marble, you feel the comforting weight of history and progress intertwined. You think of the countless Athenians, past and present, who have sought to shine, not just with oil or foam, but with the radiant human desire to care for oneself, to find beauty in balance, and to embrace change with a gentle heart. That night, as you wash with the fragrant soap, you sense the pulse of a city evolving, one sudsy step at a time. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, Athens is bathed in a soft, golden light that makes every stone wall and olive leaf shimmer with quiet warmth. The city's vibrant hustle gradually fades. The marketplace's clatter is replaced by gentle conversations and the occasional laughter from taverns spilling onto cobblestone streets. The scent of roasting lamb mingles with the unmistakable aroma of fresh bread cooling on windowsills. You find your footsteps naturally veering away from the lively heart of the city, pulled by an invisible thread toward Athena's olive grove, an ancient refuge where history breathes quietly through twisted trunks and silvery leaves. Entering the grove feels like stepping through a time portal. The olive trees stand thick and gnarled, their bark cracked and furrowed by centuries of sun, wind, and storms. The branches arch overhead, creating a shimmering canopy of green and silver that dances with the slightest breeze. The air here is cool and earthy, alive with the scent of crushed leaves, wild herbs, and distant sea salt carried in by the breeze. It's a sanctuary woven of myth, medicine, and everyday survival, a living testament to the deep relationship between the Athenians and their beloved olive tree. Your mind drifts to the well-known fact that olive oil was central to Athens, not just as a beauty product, but as a pillar of health and ritual. Yet, here in the grove, surrounded by these ancient giants, you realize just how profound and multifaceted the role of olive oil was. It was medicine, protection, spiritual offering, and practical necessity all wrapped into one golden elixir. Imagine the apothecaries of Athens, working in shadowed workshops filled with the scent of herbs and resins. Their tables cluttered with mortar and pestle, jars brimming with lavender, rosemary, thyme, and myrrh. Each herb carefully chosen for its healing and aromatic qualities, painstakingly crushed and blended into rich olive oil to create salves and balms. These were remedies for aches after long days in the fields, ointments to soothe wounds from training or skirmishes, and moisturizers to protect the skin from the drying Mediterranean sun and salty air. A particularly intriguing and lesser-known detail emerges. Ancient Athenians used olive oil as a form of sun protection. They mixed it with powdered minerals, chalk, or finely ground clay, and perfumed these mixtures with floral extracts. While historians still debate whether these early sunblocks provided effective UV protection or functioned more as ritual anointments and skin softeners, the very existence of these concoctions reveals an impressive awareness of skincare and sun care long before modern science formalized the concept. You visualize athletes preparing for the stadion race or wrestling contest, their muscles glistening with oiled sheen under the fierce sun, bodies gleaming and taut, ready for exertion. You see warriors on the battlefield's edge, rubbing healing oils into bruised and battered limbs, the scent of herbs mingling with sweat and dust. Mothers gently massaging newborns with olive oil infused with calming herbs, blessing the child's skin and spirit alike. The fragrance of oil fills the air, mixing with the earthy scent of soil and the faint smoke of evening fires. Beyond its practical and medicinal uses, the olive branch is an enduring symbol. Peace, victory, divine favor, all imprinted deeply on Athens' cultural and spiritual identity. This emblem appears on coins, frescoes, and in countless myths. The tree and its oil link everyday life to the sacred, providing not just nourishment for the body, but food for the soul. You stop before an ancient olive tree, its bark rough, knotted, and cracked like a map of the centuries it has witnessed. Placing your hand on its weathered surface, you feel the pulse of countless generations. Farmers who nurtured the grove, priests who performed sacred rites, soldiers who sought blessings before battle, families who found solace beneath its branches. The tree's resilience in rocky, unforgiving soil mirrors the endurance and spirit of the Athenian people, thriving despite hardship and change. The leaves above stir softly, their rustling a gentle lullaby, mingling with the delicate song of a nightingale weaving through the twilight. The grove seems suspended outside of time, a place where myth and reality coexist in harmonious balance beneath the gathering stars. Here, the act of applying olive oil is transformed into a ritual, one that connects you to nature, to the divine, and to the endless lineage of those who came before. Each drop carries the wisdom and care of centuries, a tangible thread woven through the fabric of history. As night deepens, you breathe in the fragrant, herb-scented air, wrapped in the grove's quiet embrace. The story of olive oil lives in every leaf, every breeze, and every glimmering drop, a living testament to the soul of Athens. You leave the grove with a sense of reverence and newfound understanding. Beauty rituals are never merely superficial. They are sacred stories of healing, resilience, and connection that bind us across the centuries. The sun is gone now, replaced by a canvas of stars shimmering above, and you realize that beneath this vast, ancient sky, the simple olive oil you once thought of as just a cosmetic marvel holds a far deeper magic, one that touches body, spirit, and history all at once. The velvet cloak of night descends slowly over Athens, draping the city in shadows that dance flickeringly beneath the soft glow of oil lamps and torches. You leave behind the tranquil olive grove, stepping into the labyrinth of narrow stone streets where the city's quieter, more intimate rhythms begin to pulse. The lively agora has given way to hushed conversations, the gentle clinking of pottery, and the distant murmur of the sea whispering against the shore. Here, beneath this canopy of stars, another layer of Athena's gifts begins to unfold. Her wisdom not only in olive oil, but in the subtle arts of craft, weaving, and the mysterious origins of early Athenian cosmetics. Athena's legacy in textiles is legendary, yet more than just a myth, it is a cultural foundation. You recall the ancient story of the weaving contest between Athena and the mortal Arachne, a tale embroidered with themes of pride, punishment, and divine inspiration. But beneath the dramatic myth lies a deeper truth. Weaving was not merely a craft, but a form of personal and social identity. The very fabric worn by Athenians was a symbol of status, skill, and reverence for the divine. Imagine the workshops where women and men labored at looms, fingers deftly weaving threads of wool and flax into intricate patterns dyed with natural pigments. Colors derived from crushed berries, minerals like ochre, and plant extracts, each chosen not only for their beauty, but also for their symbolic meanings. The production of these textiles was closely intertwined with personal grooming and cosmetic practices, as the same pigments used to color fabric found their way into the powders and paints applied to skin. Early Greek cosmetics were a curious blend of practicality, artistry, and ritual. You picture women grinding minerals and blending animal fats with fragrant herbs to create foundations, rouge, and eyeliners. The pigments, often derived from red ochre, malachite, and charcoal, were more than decoration. They protected delicate skin from sun and wind, camouflaged imperfections, and carried cultural messages about status, health, and even spiritual well-being. Some historians argue that these early cosmetic applications served primarily practical purposes, like shielding skin from harsh environmental elements, while others maintain they were purely symbolic, intended to please the gods or convey social standing. The truth likely weaves between both, a dual function of protection and expression, health and identity. Consider the fascinating intersection between textile dyeing and cosmetics. the process of extracting color from plants and minerals, combining them with oils and fats to create lasting pigments, mirrored in both fabric and skin adornment. This dual use underscores a profound cultural blending of art, nature, and the human desire to shape one's outward appearance. Beeswax was often added to these mixtures to give cosmetics a smooth, workable texture and to help them adhere to skin. The sweet scent of honey and crushed herbs like lavender, rosemary, and thyme filled the air in these workshops and homes. These scents were not random. They carried symbolic weight: purity, protection, and healing. You imagine the soft, perfumed touch of a mother applying a gentle makeup-like salve to her daughter's face before a festival, or an aristocratic woman preparing for a symposium with carefully layered pigments and oils. Personal grooming, in this context, was a form of weaving identity, not just physical, but social and spiritual. The very act of adorning oneself linked the wearer to a community, to the divine favor of Athena, and to a long lineage of tradition and craft. In a world where status was deeply visible and social roles rigid, the way one presented their face and garments was an essential part of communication and belonging. Athena's influence extended beyond just weaving cloth and inventing cosmetics. She was the goddess of wisdom who inspired innovation. Early cosmetic recipes were passed down and refined through generations, blending folk knowledge with emerging scientific curiosity. Some formulations included lead-based pigments, which later proved toxic but were prized for their opaque whiteness, a testament to how aesthetics sometimes trumped health concerns in antiquity. Historians still debate the extent to which ancient Greeks understood the risks involved, but these practices reveal a fascinating early intersection of beauty, chemistry, and health. The social aspect of these grooming rituals cannot be overstated. Gatherings where women applied cosmetics together became moments of bonding, storytelling, and education. You envision these communal occasions, soft chatter punctuated by laughter, the sharing of secret recipes, and whispered advice on appearances and charm. These moments strengthened communal ties and reinforced shared values. Even men participated, though often in different ways. Athletes used oils and pigments to highlight muscles and protect skin. Soldiers prepared themselves with balms and salves, and philosophers sometimes shunned cosmetics as signs of vanity. Yet, in public life, appearance mattered. It was part of persuasion, authority, and presence. From the smallest village to the bustling city center, the making and wearing of cosmetics was a practice layered with meaning and purpose. It was an art, a science, and a ritual. Each stroke of pigment and drop of oil a thread in the complex fabric of Greek identity. The scent of crushed herbs, beeswax, and aromatic resins lingers in your imagination as you trace the origins of these early beauty practices. The blending of nature and craftsmanship, utility, and symbolism reflects a culture deeply invested in the visible expression of self. It's a reminder that beauty, even in its most practical forms, has always been a way humans connect with each other, with their gods, and with the stories they live by. As the night deepens, the city quiets further, and you sense the delicate balance Athens maintained between the sacred and the everyday, the practical and the poetic. Athena's gifts in weaving, wisdom, and cosmetics are threads that bind these realms, reminding you that behind every face painted, every garment woven, lies a story rich with meaning. You take a deep breath, the cool night air filling your lungs with the scents of olive, myrrh, and ancient stone. The city's soft heartbeat surrounds you, and you realize that personal care in ancient Athens was never just about appearance. It was a ritualized communal dance that wove identity, tradition, and divine favor into the very skin and fabric of its people. And so, you carry this story with you as you walk beneath the stars, a tale of craftsmanship, beauty, and wisdom handed down from Athena herself, still shimmering faintly in the quiet night of Athens. The night deepens over Athens, wrapping the city in a soft cloak of quiet and mystery. The bustling agora has long since emptied, the clatter of sandals on stone giving way to gentle footsteps echoing through shadowed streets. As you wander, drawn by a faint, comforting warmth, you find yourself approaching one of Athens' famed public baths, sanctuaries of cleanliness, community, and ritual, where the ancient art of bathing was far more than simple hygiene. Here, the Greeks transformed everyday washing into a sophisticated blend of health, social bonding, and sensory indulgence. Imagine stepping into the bathhouse's cool vestibule. The marble floor smooth beneath your feet, cool and slightly damp. The air is heavy with the scent of steam, fragrant oils, and fresh water. Soft flickers of oil lamps illuminate the room, casting shadows that dance on the walls and ripple across the surface of the pools. This is no mere bath. It is a carefully crafted experience designed to refresh body, mind, and spirit alike. The ancient Greeks were pioneers of bathing practices that integrated water, oils, and exfoliation in ways that still inspire spa culture today. The cornerstone of these rituals was olive oil, liquid gold harvested from Athena's sacred groves, which served as a natural cleanser, moisturizer, and even a mild antiseptic. Unlike modern soap, which relies on lather and detergents, the Greeks used olive oil to loosen dirt and sweat from their skin. They would rub the oil onto their bodies, then scrape it off with a curved tool called a strigil, carrying away grime along with the oil. This ritual of oiling and scraping was both cleansing and invigorating, a gentle abrasion that left skin soft, smooth, and glowing. Historians still debate whether the antiseptic properties of the olive oil and herbal infusions used in these baths were consciously understood or simply a fortunate benefit. Some suggest the oil's natural antioxidants and antimicrobial compounds played a subtle role in preventing skin infections and maintaining health, while others argue the emphasis was largely on sensory pleasure and social status. Either way, the practice reveals an impressive ancient awareness of skincare's importance, blending utility with luxury. Beyond cleansing, the baths were a place of social and cultural exchange. Citizens of Athens, men and women, young and old, gathered in these communal spaces to relax, refresh, and connect. The bathhouse was a hub of conversation, gossip, and philosophy. You can almost hear the low murmur of voices debating politics, exchanging news, or sharing poetic verses while the warm water soothed their muscles. Bathing here was as much about mental and emotional cleansing as physical. In these spaces, ritual and routine blurred. The act of bathing became a ceremony. Oil application was precise, sometimes enhanced with fragrant herbs and flower essences, like lavender or rose, adding layers of calming aromatics to the experience. You might catch the faint scent of myrrh or cedarwood lingering in the air, remnants of incense or infused oils. These aromatic details were not mere indulgences, but carried symbolic weight, signaling purification, protection, and divine favor. The architecture of these bathhouses supported their multifaceted purpose. Marble pools held water heated by subterranean furnaces. Steam rooms offered restorative warmth, and cold plunge pools provided invigorating contrast. The layout encouraged social interaction. Open courtyards, benches along the walls, and private niches allowed both communal gatherings and moments of quiet reflection. In many ways, the bathhouse functioned as a microcosm of Athenian society, where cleanliness, conversation, and culture intertwined seamlessly. You also glimpse the more private side of these rituals. Wealthier Athenians might add rare oils infused with precious herbs or exotic resins, creating personalized blends said to enhance beauty, soothe skin, or uplift the spirit. These luxuries underscore the growing sophistication of cosmetic and therapeutic practices. At the same time, simpler olive oil treatments were accessible to all, bridging social divides through shared tradition. Interestingly, the use of olive oil in bathing and skincare intersected with athletic culture. Athletes frequently anointed their bodies with oil before exercise and competition, not only to prepare their muscles, but also as a way to highlight their physique and display vitality. After exertion, the same oil and scrapping routine helped cleanse and soothe their skin. This ritual further connects the physical and social realms of Greek life. The bath's healing potential extended beyond skin deep. Ancient physicians and healers sometimes recommended baths infused with medicinal herbs for treating ailments, from muscle pain to respiratory issues. These therapeutic baths combine the benefits of warmth, water, fragrant oils, and massage, a holistic approach that prefigured modern spa therapy. The blending of medicinal knowledge with everyday self-care reflects a culture attentive to well-being in all its forms. You imagine yourself seated by a steaming pool, feeling the gentle warmth of the water against your skin as you watch citizens immersed in their ritual. Some engage in spirited debates, others share quiet companionship, and a few simply close their eyes to savor the moment. The bathhouse becomes a sanctuary where body and mind are refreshed, where the ancient wisdom of Athena's olive oil touches every pore and every conversation. As night deepens, you realize these bathing rituals reveal much about Athens itself, its values, its sophistication, and its delicate balance between practicality and pleasure. The baths are more than places to wash. They are spaces to heal, connect, and celebrate life's rhythms. The story of olive oil here is not just about beauty, but about community and care, about the ways humans have long sought harmony between the physical and the spiritual. The faint crackle of torches outside signals the city's slow surrender to sleep, but inside the bathhouse, a quiet vitality remains, a reminder that some rituals transcend time, linking us with those who bathed beneath the same stars thousands of years ago. You rise, feeling refreshed yourself, carrying the warm glow of these ancient practices back into the cool night air. And as you step back into the streets, the memory of olive oil's golden sheen on your skin lingers, a symbol of renewal, resilience, and the timeless dance between nature and human touch. The cool night air brushes against your skin as you step away from the soothing warmth of the Athenian baths, leaving behind the soft scents of olive oil, herbs, and steam. But the story of olive oil, Athena's shimmering gift, doesn't end there. It flows naturally into the bustling kitchens and lively dining rooms of ancient Greece, where this golden elixir was nothing less than the lifeblood of Greek cuisine and daily sustenance. Here, olive oil was as essential as bread or wine, a cornerstone of flavor, nutrition, and social ritual that shaped the very fabric of Greek life. Imagine the aroma of freshly baked bread wafting through a sunlit courtyard, its warm crust still crackling softly. A shallow bowl of olive oil sits nearby, shimmering like liquid sunshine, waiting to be dipped into. The simple act of tearing a piece of bread and dipping it into this fragrant oil wasn't just about nourishment. It was a small ceremony, a moment to savor life's pleasures. The oil, pressed from countless olives harvested under the Mediterranean sun, carried the essence of the land, the seasons, and centuries of tradition. Olive oil's culinary versatility was remarkable. It was the primary cooking fat, used for frying, roasting, and dressing foods. Its rich, fruity flavor enhanced everything from fresh vegetables to hearty grains and tender meats. The Greeks prized it for its ability to preserve foods. Drizzling oil over cheeses or fish helped extend their shelf life, a crucial benefit in an age without refrigeration. It was not only a seasoning but a preservative, a magic ingredient that kept meals fresh during long voyages or hot summers. The production of olive oil itself was a marvel of ancient ingenuity and communal effort. You picture the meticulous process beginning with the hand-picking of ripe olives, careful not to bruise the precious fruit. Baskets brimming with olives were carried to stone presses, huge circular millstones turned by oxen or slaves to crush the fruit into a pulpy mash. This mash was then pressed between woven mats or in wooden presses to extract the golden liquid. The oil was collected in clay amphorae, sealed tight to protect it from light and air, and stored in cool cellars. Historians still argue over the scale of olive oil production during different periods. Was it dominated by small family farms, where generations tended a few dozen trees with tender care? Or were vast estates, latifundia, controlled by wealthy elites who wielded both economic and political power over the region's oil supply? The answer might lie somewhere in between. Archaeological evidence points to both small-scale domestic presses and large industrial complexes, suggesting a mixed economy where olive oil production was both a family tradition and a commercial enterprise. The social significance of olive oil extended beyond the kitchen. It was a symbol of prosperity and hospitality, a marker of good fortune and civilized life. Wealthy households displayed their best amphorae filled with rich oil during feasts, impressing guests with the quality and quantity of their stores. The sharing of food, especially bread dipped in oil, was a communal act, reinforcing bonds of friendship and alliance. At symposiums, the famed drinking parties of Athens, oil was often drizzled over simple dishes to complement wine and conversation. Olive oil's importance also reached into religious and ceremonial life. It was offered to the gods as libations, burned in lamps during sacred rites, and used to anoint victors in athletic competitions. The Olympic champions were crowned with olive wreaths and rubbed with oil to celebrate their triumphs. This ritual underscored olive oil's dual role as both a physical sustainer and a spiritual symbol, anointing the body and the soul with divine favor. The nutritional value of olive oil was well understood by the Greeks, even if their medical theories differed from ours. They recognized its ability to nourish the body and soothe ailments. Physicians recommended it as a dietary staple and as a treatment for wounds and skin conditions. This knowledge further elevated olive oil's status from mere foodstuff to medicinal marvel. As you delve deeper, you uncover stories of how olive oil shaped trade and economy in the ancient Mediterranean world. Greek olive oil was exported far beyond Athens and the Peloponnese, reaching markets in Egypt, Rome, and the Near East. Amphorae bearing distinctive seals and markings have been found in shipwrecks and archaeological sites, attesting to an extensive and well-organized trade network. Olive oil was a valuable commodity, sometimes used as currency, and its trade helped fuel Athens' rise as a commercial power. Yet, olive oil was not just about grand economics and ritual. It was woven into the daily rhythms of ordinary Greeks. From the humble farmer savoring a midday snack of olives and oil, to the artisan preparing a simple dinner, olive oil was a constant companion. It flavored their meals, nurtured their bodies, and connected them to the land that bore it. Interestingly, olive oil's role in cuisine also intersected with early food preservation techniques and culinary experimentation. Ancient Greeks explored mixing oil with herbs, vinegar, and spices, creating early versions of dressings and marinades. This not only enhanced flavor but also helped preserve perishable foods. The roots of Mediterranean cuisine, celebrated today for its health benefits and vibrant tastes, can be traced back to these early culinary practices. As you imagine the lively banquets and quiet family meals where olive oil was ever present, you realize it was more than an ingredient. It was a thread running through the social, economic, and spiritual fabric of Greek society. It was a source of sustenance and a symbol of identity, binding people to their land, their gods, and each other. The golden hue of olive oil, gleaming in the soft candlelight of a dinner table, becomes a metaphor for the richness and complexity of Greek culture itself. And as you breathe in the imagined aromas of thyme, oregano, fresh bread, and roasted figs, you carry with you the profound realization that this humble oil, born of the earth and blessed by Athena, was truly the liquid heart of ancient Greece. The lingering golden aroma of olive oil pulls you gently from the bustling kitchens and warm baths of ancient Greece into a quieter, more intimate world, the realm of ancient Greek medicine and wellness. Here, olive oil is far more than a cooking staple or cosmetic luxury. It is a treasured healing substance, a liquid medicine that permeates the very fabric of health and care in the classical world. Imagine yourself stepping into a small apothecary, its shelves lined with earthenware jars filled with fragrant oils, herbs drying in bundles hanging from the ceiling, and the soft glow of oil lamps casting flickering shadows on the walls. This is a place where the ancient Greeks explored the curative powers of the natural world, and olive oil stood at the heart of their pharmacopoeia. Olive oil's use in Greek medicine is perhaps most famously associated with Hippocrates, the legendary father of medicine. Unlike the modern physician who might rely on pills and injections, Hippocrates and his followers embraced natural remedies derived from plants, minerals, and foodstuffs, olive oil being a prominent example. They valued its soothing, emollient qualities for treating wounds and skin conditions. Picture a soldier returning from battle, his skin cracked and bruised. The physician gently massages the injured areas with warm olive oil infused with herbs like rosemary or chamomile, calming inflammation and promoting healing. The oil forms a protective barrier, locks in moisture, and provides a gentle antiseptic effect, long before the invention of modern antibiotics. But olive oil's healing properties were not limited to external applications. Ancient medical texts reveal that it was consumed as a remedy for digestive issues, used to ease constipation or to stimulate appetite. Some physicians prescribed a spoonful of olive oil as a mild laxative or to soothe the stomach lining, helping to balance the body's humors. The ancient Greek theory that health depended on the equilibrium of blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Olive oil was thought to harmonize these bodily fluids, a critical part of maintaining wellness and preventing disease. You can almost hear the gentle voice of a physician advising, "Take a teaspoon of olive oil daily and your digestion will thank you." The versatility of olive oil extended to its role in massages, an ancient practice closely linked to health and sport in Greece. Athletes preparing for competition would have their bodies anointed with oil, not only to beautify and protect the skin, but also to improve flexibility and circulation. After intense exercise, a massage with olive oil mixed with herbal extracts could relieve muscle soreness and flush out toxins. This ritual was both therapeutic and sensory, a blend of physical care and indulgence, a tradition that survived in various forms well beyond antiquity. Yet, how widespread were these medicinal uses? Scholars still debate whether olive oil-based treatments were primarily reserved for the wealthy elite who could afford physicians and elaborate remedies, or if such practices filtered down to common folk who used olive oil in home remedies. Archaeological finds of oil containers in modest dwellings suggest domestic use was common, while medical papyri and texts often highlight elite practices. It's likely that olive oil's healing role permeated many layers of society, its accessibility making it a natural first aid solution for many. Beyond its practical uses, olive oil also held a significant spiritual and ritualistic place in Greek healing traditions. Temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine, often featured rituals where supplicants were anointed with olive oil as a sign of purification and divine blessing. The oil symbolized not only physical healing but also spiritual cleansing, marking the body as a sacred vessel. The connection between olive oil and divine favor was a powerful aspect of its cultural resonance, imbuing it with meanings far beyond its physical properties. Delving deeper, you find fascinating ancient debates about what made olive oil so beneficial. Some thinkers attributed its effects to its nutrient content, rich in antioxidants and vitamins, though they lacked the biochemical language we use today. Others focused on its texture and moisture-retaining abilities, emphasizing its role as a protective barrier for skin and wounds. This interplay of empirical observation and philosophical speculation shows the complexity of Greek medical thought, blending practical experience with broader questions about nature and health. Olive oil also intersected with early cosmetic practices, blurring the lines between beauty and medicine. Women and men alike used oil to cleanse and protect their skin and hair, believing in its restorative powers. Its nourishing qualities made it a natural remedy for dryness and irritation, linking health, beauty, and well-being into a seamless whole. This holistic approach contrasts with modern medicine's compartmentalization, reminding us that the ancients saw the body and its care in integrated ways. As you explore the medical uses of olive oil, you sense a thread connecting diet, hygiene, medicine, and spirituality, a tapestry in which olive oil is a golden thread. It nourishes the body from within, soothes the skin from without, and sanctifies through ritual. This triad illustrates the unique place olive oil held in Greek culture, where the boundaries between food, medicine, and symbol were fluid. Remarkably, many of these ancient insights resonate with modern science. Today, we know olive oil contains healthy fats, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds that support cardiovascular health, skin repair, and overall wellness. The Mediterranean diet, celebrated worldwide for its benefits, hinges on olive oil as a central component, showing that the ancient Greeks were onto something truly profound. The echoes of their wisdom ripple through millennia, connecting us to their understanding of nature's gifts. Leaving this contemplative world behind, you carry a new appreciation for olive oil as more than a simple kitchen ingredient. It is a healer, a protector, a sacred substance that bound together the practical and the spiritual in ancient Greece. From battlefield wounds to everyday digestion, from sacred anointings to athletic massages, olive oil was a vital thread woven through the many dimensions of life. As the night deepens and you draw a slow breath, you feel connected across time and space to the countless hands that pressed, poured, and applied this golden oil, an enduring symbol of health, hope, and harmony. You step now into the sunlit, bustling world of ancient Greek athletics and beauty, where olive oil gleams as much on bodies as it does in jars. This golden liquid was not merely a cosmetic accessory or a health aid. It was woven into the very fabric of physical culture, identity, and aesthetics in ancient Greece. Picture the gymnasiums and palaestras, open-air training grounds filled with the rhythmic sounds of exertion, the pounding of feet on stone, the clink of discus against hand, the grunt of wrestlers grappling on mats. Here, olive oil is ever present, a slick sheen on bronzed skin, a protective barrier against the elements, and a symbol of vitality and status. Athletic training in ancient Greece was not simply about competition, but a holistic practice aimed at cultivating both body and mind. The daily regimen of wrestling, running, and throwing was complemented by a suite of grooming and care rituals centered around olive oil. Athletes would begin their sessions by anointing their bodies with olive oil, spreading it over muscles and joints. This practice served several practical purposes. First, the oil protected the skin from the drying effects of sun and wind during outdoor workouts. The Mediterranean sun could be harsh, and oil helped shield delicate skin from cracking or burning, creating a thin, flexible layer that locked in moisture. Second, the oil reduced friction during physical contact and exertion, especially important in wrestling and pankration, where bodies frequently rubbed against one another. By smoothing the skin, olive oil minimized chafing and abrasions, preventing painful sores that could sideline even the most dedicated athletes. The oil's slickness also added a certain aesthetic appeal. Muscles gleamed under the sun, emphasizing physical form and strength in ways that were both functional and symbolic. After training, massage with olive oil became a ritual of recovery. Trainers or attendants would knead tired muscles, working the oil deep into skin and tissue to soothe soreness and stimulate blood flow. Mixed with herbs like mint or rosemary, the massage oil became a potent restorative balm. This was not only physical therapy, but also a sensory experience, cooling, calming, and enlivening the athlete's body and spirit. The ancient Greeks believed such practices improved performance and longevity, linking physical care with excellence. But the role of olive oil in athletics was not merely practical. It was deeply entwined with cultural ideals of beauty, youth, and divine favor. The Greeks prized the nude male form as an expression of human perfection, celebrating harmony, proportion, and strength. The glistening sheen of oil on skin enhanced this aesthetic, making the body look more vibrant and alive. Oil was also used in public competitions and festivals, where athletes displayed their bodies as living art. It was said that the gods themselves admired the well-oiled athlete, and the ritual anointing symbolized a connection between mortals and the divine. Indeed, oil sacred associations went beyond the gymnasium. Victors in athletic contests were crowned with olive wreaths, symbols of peace, victory, and connection to the goddess Athena. The same olive tree that provided the oil also produced the wreaths, linking athletic achievement to divine blessing and civic pride. This intertwining of nature, sport, and religion created a rich tapestry of meaning around olive oil, elevating it beyond a mere grooming aid. Historians still debate how much the ritual use of olive oil shaped Greek concepts of health and attractiveness. Some argue that oiling the body was essential to the cultural ideal of the kalos kagathos, the beautiful and good citizen whose physical and moral virtues were inseparable. Others suggest it was as much about status and wealth, with oil consumption and application indicating social class and access to resources. Whatever the case, the symbolism of oiled skin as youthfully radiant and divinely favored remains a striking image of antiquity. Olive oil also played a role in personal hygiene beyond athletics. Public baths, where social and grooming rituals merged, often featured oil applications. Bathers would rub oil over their skin before scraping it off with a strigil, a curved metal tool designed to remove dirt and sweat. This practice was both cleansing and moisturizing, leaving skin soft and supple. It was a daily routine that blended health, beauty, and social interaction, a holistic approach to care that still resonates with modern spa treatments. The connection between olive oil and beauty extended to hair care as well. Both men and women used olive oil as a conditioner and styling aid, believing it nourished hair and gave it shine. Perfumed oils infused with flowers or herbs were popular, making the act of grooming a sensory delight as well as a practical necessity. In a culture that valued presentation and personal pride, olive oil was a crucial tool in maintaining one's image. As you imagine these scenes, the gleaming athletes, the lively bathhouses, the fragrant grooming rituals, you see how olive oil was much more than a substance. It was a cultural icon, a marker of identity and aspiration. It bridged the practical and the symbolic, the mundane and the divine. Interestingly, some modern scholars suggest that the ancient emphasis on olive oil in athletic and beauty rituals influenced later European traditions of anointing and sacred oils, tracing a continuous line from Greek gymnasiums to medieval and even contemporary practices. The oily sheen of the athlete becomes a metaphor for vitality and grace that transcends time. So, as you feel the imagined texture of olive oil on skin, the warmth of the sun, and the vibrant energy of the athletic world, you grasp the full spectrum of olive oil's significance, not just as a healing agent or foodstuff, but as a symbol of life's vigor and the pursuit of excellence. The next time you rub lotion on your skin or savor the smell of fresh olive oil in your kitchen, remember the thousands of years of tradition behind that golden liquid, the hands that pressed olives, the athletes who polished their muscles with it, and the ancient culture that celebrated it as a divine gift. You leave behind the lively gymnasiums, the scent of sweat and olive oil mingling with exertion, and step into a quieter, more sacred world. The temples, groves, and sanctuaries of ancient Greece, where olive oil takes on a profound spiritual and ceremonial significance. Imagine yourself walking along a shaded path lined with towering olive trees, their twisted trunks gnarled and ancient, leaves whispering softly in the Mediterranean breeze. These groves were often considered sacred places, intimately linked to the gods, especially Athena, the city's patron goddess and the divine mother of the olive tree. The very air is filled with reverence as you approach marble altars, flickering with the gentle glow of oil lamps, ready for ritual offerings. Here, olive oil transcends its practical uses and becomes a medium of divine connection, a symbol of blessing, purification, and sacred power. The use of olive oil in Greek religious practice is vast and deeply embedded. It was poured in libations, liquid offerings made to the gods at the heart of worship ceremonies. Imagine priests or priestesses carefully lifting ornate vessels, pouring streams of golden oil over altars, stone statues, or sacred fires. This was no mere gesture. It was a powerful act of communication between mortals and deities, a tangible offering meant to honor, appease, and invoke divine favor. At festivals like the Panathenaea, the grand annual celebration dedicated to Athena, the importance of olive oil was unmistakable. Processions wound through Athens, culminating in the presentation of massive amphorae filled with the city's finest olive oil, as prizes for athletic victors and symbolic gifts to the goddess herself. The oil represented both wealth and spiritual blessing, embodying the essence of the goddess's gift and the city's prosperity. But olive oil's sacred role extended well beyond the grand festivals. In daily religious life, it was used for anointing people, statues, and sacred objects. Anointing with olive oil was a ritual of purification and consecration, sacred touch that marked a person or object as blessed, protected, and set apart for divine purposes. When newborns were brought to temples, their skin was often anointed with olive oil as a form of spiritual protection and welcome into the community. Brides would be similarly anointed before marriage, symbolizing purity and new beginnings blessed by the gods. At funerary rites, oil played a role in preparing bodies for burial, an act believed to help guide the deceased safely into the afterlife. Olive oil was thus a liquid bridge connecting human life's most important transitions with divine grace and protection. The symbolism of the olive tree itself intensified these sacred associations. According to myth, Athena gifted the olive tree to the city of Athens during a contest with Poseidon, offering a gift of lasting peace and prosperity rather than mere power. The tree became a symbol of civic identity, divine favor, and abundance. Olive groves were often treated as protected sacred spaces, with laws forbidding their destruction. The very act of harvesting olives was imbued with ritual meaning, and the oil extracted from these fruits was seen as the purest essence of the god's blessing on earth. Historians and scholars still debate how ancient Greeks conceptualized this sacredness. Was olive oil's holiness inherent, a divine substance in itself? Or did it derive its power entirely from ritual use and symbolic association? Some suggest that myths describing olive oil as liquid gold and as a gift from the gods imply an intrinsic sacred quality. Others view it as a mediating substance, a tangible medium through which human piety and divine power intersected. Either way, the reverence was clear and pervasive. This spiritual importance of olive oil was not limited to public religious ceremonies. It penetrated deeply into the personal and social spheres of Greek life. Beyond anointing and ritual use, olive oil was part of household worship, used in daily prayers and small offerings to household gods and ancestors. Lamps fueled by olive oil burned in homes and temples alike, their steady flame a symbol of life's continuity, and divine presence. The scent of burning oil was associated with purity and sanctity, filling the air with a gentle reminder of the ever-present divine. The ritual use of olive oil also overlapped with healing and protection. Many temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine, employed olive oil in sacred healing rituals. Pilgrims seeking cures would be anointed with oil, believed to carry both physical and spiritual healing powers. This dual role of olive oil, as medicine and sacrament, illustrates the holistic worldview of the Greeks, where health and piety were intertwined, and where the sacred and mundane were never truly separate. You can almost hear the hymns and prayers echoing in these spaces, invoking the gods with oil-slicked hands raised in supplication. The rituals surrounding olive oil reinforced communal bonds and individual identities alike, marking moments of triumph, transition, and transformation. Olive oil was not just a commodity, but a language, a sacred dialogue between humans and gods, life and death, the earthly and the divine. This deep spiritual resonance of olive oil continues to echo into modern times. Christian traditions, for instance, adopted the ritual use of oil in sacraments like baptism and anointing of the sick, tracing a cultural lineage back to these ancient Greek practices. The idea of anointing as a sacred act of blessing and healing has roots in the Mediterranean's ancient past, with olive oil as its golden thread. As you step back from these temples and groves, carrying the soft glow of sacred lamps and the scent of fresh oil in your imagination, you feel the weight of history and the beauty of ritual. Olive oil, once just a food or cosmetic, emerges as a profound symbol of humanity's search for meaning, connection, and transcendence. It is a gift from nature, transformed by culture into a sacred medium, linking mortal hearts to immortal gods. So tonight, as you let your eyes grow heavy and your breath slow, imagine the flicker of torchlight on ancient stone, the gentle pour of olive oil on cool marble, and the quiet prayers whispered beneath olive trees. Reminders that even the simplest substances can carry the deepest mysteries of life. The night settles deeper now, and so does your journey. Down into the shadowy undercurrents of Greek myth where not everything glows with golden reverence. Just as olive oil once lit the lamps of temples and soothed the skin of champions, it also slipped into stranger roles. Some that make you blink and wonder whether the gods weren't just a little unhinged. Because yes, even sacred olive oil found its way into rituals that were borderline bizarre, occasionally baffling, and sometimes downright comedic. Let's take a turn into the world of folk remedies and fringe superstitions. Those little corners of belief where people, desperate or devout, swore by the powers of this magical liquid. In rural communities and the whispers of old priestesses, olive oil was more than a balm. It was a ward against evil. Picture this: a terrified Athenian mother drawing a circle around her child's cradle using oil, chanting softly in a dialect barely remembered, hoping to keep out spirits that slipped in with the night. These kinds of rituals weren't scripted in Homeric verse. They were practiced in backyards, on rooftops, passed from one generation of women to the next. Some still argue if these were rooted in early forms of mysticism or just superstition wrapped in comfort. But we're not done. Olive oil also played a starring role in divination. Yes, fortune-telling. You might not think it, but long before tarot decks or crystal balls took over TikTok, the ancient Greeks were pouring oil into bowls of water and squinting at the way it swirled, interpreting signs from the gods in every ripple. It was called lecanomancy, and it was delightfully weird. Want to know if your crush likes you back? Drop a few beads of oil into a basin and watch how they dance. If they move toward each other, love is on the horizon. If they scatter, maybe stick to writing poetry instead. Some lecanomancy was used to detect lies, illness, or even the presence of curses. You can almost imagine a skeptical philosopher raising an eyebrow while a village healer insists the olive oil never lies. Historians still argue whether such practices were widespread or fringe. Some believe they were remnants of older pre-Hellenic traditions, preserved on the edges of society where priestesses still whispered to trees. Others suggest they were merely domestic pastimes with no real theological weight. But clearly, olive oil wasn't confined to temples or gymnasiums. It slid across every level of Greek life, from high ceremonies to homegrown kitchen spells. And speaking of homes, let's not overlook how olive oil found its way into certain very personal problems. We're talking about cures for hiccups, headaches, sore teeth, and mysterious ailments of the belly. A few drops behind the ear, a light rub on the temples, a spoonful before bed, chased by a prayer. Some swore by it as a digestive aid. Others believed it soothed demonic possession. Yes, that escalated quickly. Olive oil became a first aid kit for the soul and stomach alike. Then there's the sticky subject of olive oil in love magic. Brace yourself. Some Greeks believed olive oil could be used to craft philters, ancient love potions. These weren't the kind of drink-me mixtures that spark instant romance, but rather a blend of oil, herbs, sometimes hair or fingernail clippings, gross but true, and whispered invocations to gods like Aphrodite. The oil would be used to anoint a doorway or garment, or even the skin of the one casting the spell. It was thought to influence the heart of the beloved, tilting fate gently in your favor, or backfiring spectacularly when Eros wasn't in the mood. Quirkier still was olive oil's cameo in curse tablets, small lead sheets inscribed with maledictions, sometimes buried in graves or wells. Occasionally, oil was poured over these tablets during the ritual to activate their power, to carry the curse into the realm of the dead. Whether you wanted to win a court case or make your enemy stub his toe every day forever, olive oil might have been your unassuming magical assistant. But olive oil didn't always stay obedient. In some myths, it caused problems. One lesser-known story tells of a boastful Thessalian priest who claimed his temple had the most sacred, self-replenishing amphora of olive oil, gifted, supposedly, by Athena herself. When skeptics arrived and the amphora failed to fill itself on cue, it wasn't just embarrassing, it was scandalous. The temple lost its favor, and the priest, let's just say, he didn't keep his job. Whether the story is satire or warning, it reveals how even sacred oil could become a target for doubt, pride, and folly. Another odd detail. Some ancient authors hinted that too much oil use could soften the body and weaken a warrior's edge. In certain military manuals, there were suggestions that over-anointing made men sluggish, even effeminate. A curious fear considering how central oil was to athletic training. Perhaps it reflects broader anxieties about luxury and indulgence. Because after all, anything that feels too good must be suspicious, right? And just when you think it can't get weirder, enter the olive oil exorcisms. Rare accounts survive of oils being used to identify or drive out spirits, especially in secluded areas where official temples rarely visited. Oil was rubbed on the forehead or poured into ears while chanting protective names of the gods. Whether these rites were effective or just made the afflicted look slippery and confused, is up for debate, but they demonstrate just how far people would stretch a substance they believed in. All these fringe uses of olive oil, from magical to medical to mildly ridiculous, paint a picture of a culture that wrapped the substance into every layer of life. It wasn't only sacred, it wasn't only practical, it was also experimental, improvisational, and sometimes a little absurd. But that's what makes history human. We try things, we get creative. Sometimes we cure a rash. Sometimes we accidentally summon something we really didn't mean to. Olive oil was trusted because it had worked for generations, because it came from the earth, from Athena, from tradition. So as you lie back now, the shadows of strange rituals flickering behind your eyelids like torchlight behind a veil, you might feel a little more charmed by just how weirdly resourceful people were. Their trust in something as simple as oil, spun from the fruit of a tree, helped them face love, loss, fear, and fever with a ritual and a prayer. It may not always have worked, but it gave them comfort. Maybe it can do the same for you now. Now you find yourself standing on a rocky hillside. Late afternoon sun slanting low across the Aegean sky. The cicadas hum, the air shimmers faintly, and the scent of pressed olives lingers like a memory in the breeze. Below you lies a small rural settlement. Simple homes of clay and stone, terraced groves sprawling outward like green embroidery across the slopes. You've left the sacred and surreal behind for something quieter. The daily, ordinary life of olive oil in Greek households. But don't let the word ordinary fool you. There's nothing truly ordinary about a society where every cracked amphora, every pantry shelf, and every dinner table echoes with millennia of cultural weight. Inside one of these homes, the heart of the kitchen beats steadily. A terracotta jar, glazed with dark designs and stained by years of handling, sits beside the hearth. This is where the olive oil lives. Not in glass bottles with twist caps, but in these thick-bellied vessels kept cool and sealed, protected from the sun. And it's not just cooking oil. It's the mother sauce of the entire Mediterranean. For ancient Greeks, olive oil was their butter, their fry oil, their salad dressing, their baking fat, and their emergency ration all in one. You dip bread in it. You drizzle it on fish. You mix it with herbs and garlic. If you're lucky, you have lemon juice. If not, vinegar will do. Everything starts with the oil. Even before the meal begins, olive oil is already at work. In bread making, a dab of oil greases the pan, softens the dough, or enriches the crust. In preserved foods, it forms a barrier, sealing cheeses, sun-dried tomatoes, and pickled fish against the air. This isn't just resourcefulness, it's food chemistry passed down through centuries of intuition. You can almost hear a grandmother muttering, "Don't be stingy with it," as she pours a generous ribbon over a hot barley stew. The oil sizzles, and the aroma rises like an offering to the kitchen gods. Historians still debate the daily consumption of olive oil in ancient Greece. Some suggest it was a luxury item for the elite, based on the number of amphorae recovered from aristocratic homes and trade hubs. Others argue that while the finest oils may have been prized, lower grades, cloudier, less fragrant, were widely used by ordinary citizens. Archaeological digs in small towns show ample evidence of domestic oil presses, suggesting that rural families likely made their own. It might not have been filtered through linen twice or glowed golden like the oil at Athena's altar, but it got the job done. And it tasted like home. Meal times were communal, slow, and deeply tied to the seasons. A typical meal might include barley bread, olives, of course, dried figs, goat cheese, and some form of legume, lentils or broad beans, perhaps. Olive oil tied all these ingredients together, enhancing flavor and adding calories to otherwise austere dishes. Remember, this was a largely vegetarian society by necessity. Meat was rare and usually reserved for religious festivals or special occasions. Olive oil, then, wasn't just a topping. It was the richness, the indulgence, the joy in the meal. And meals were never purely functional. They were moments of connection, ritualized in their own way. Families gathered at low tables, reclining if they were wealthy, sitting on stools or mats if not. Bread was torn, not cut. Dishes were shared, not plated individually. You didn't eat alone unless you had to, and you didn't skip meals unless you were mourning. Olive oil, in this setting, became more than a flavor. It was a gesture. Pouring it was an act of generosity. Refilling someone's bowl was a kindness. Offering the last of the oil in the amphora. Now that was real hospitality. You might think of the Greek symposium, the legendary drinking party of philosophers and poets, as the high point of this culinary culture. But even here, olive oil had a backstage role. Though wine stole the spotlight, olive oil was used in preparing the food served alongside it. Grilled meats, marinated vegetables, and the ever-present flatbreads. Guests were often anointed with scented oils before entering, and the lamps that flickered through the night were fueled by, what else? Olive oil. It lit the laughter, kept the shadows at bay, and even provided the gentle aroma that mingled with lyre music and riddles. There's a fringe tidbit that often gets left out of school books. Some ancient Greeks believed the smell of heated olive oil sharpened the mind. A few eccentric teachers reportedly kept oil warm in class, not to eat, but to stimulate their students' intellects through the nose. Think of it as proto-aromatherapy, only slightly smokier. Scholars still chuckle over this, unsure whether it was a serious belief or just a superstition that got out of hand after one too many all-nighters spent transcribing Aristotle. Domestic olive oil had another quiet function: storage and trade. It was a kind of currency, not minted like coins, but traded and gifted with real economic weight. A family with a surplus might barter oil for wine, tools, or cloth. Young women sometimes brought amphorae of oil as part of their dowry. It could smooth over debts, cement alliances, and elevate a household status within a community. A well-stocked oil room wasn't just about survival. It was a sign of stability, dignity, and self-reliance. But every resource carries risk. Olive oil was flammable, and household fires were a real threat, especially with open flames and oil lamps burning through the night. There were stories, some likely exaggerated, of entire homes going up because someone knocked over a lamp during a midnight snack. Precautions were taken. Lamps were designed with shallow reservoirs and wide bases. Some families even kept designated night oils that burned more slowly or were mixed with thicker substances. It wasn't foolproof, but it was a start. Olive oil also had a seasonal rhythm. Pressing typically happened in late autumn, after the grape harvest, but before the hard rains of winter. Families would gather to press their crop by foot, stone mill, or lever press, and the fresh oil would be stored away for the year. This wasn't just labor, it was celebration. Children ran barefoot through the groves, songs were sung, jokes were made about slipping on olives and who had the greasiest hands. And when the new oil was finally tasted, still green and peppery, it was always with awe, because you were tasting not just a fruit, but sunlight, rain, and the memory of summer. That's what you feel now, resting quietly in your imaginary Greek kitchen, the day's work done. A low lamp flickers by the door. Somewhere outside, someone laughs. You've come to understand that olive oil wasn't just a condiment, it was a companion, a daily presence, a reminder that the divine lives in the details, in the scent rising from a hot pan, in the shimmer on a humble bowl of lentils, in the shared silence after a good meal. Now the breeze shifts slightly. The smell of cooking fades, replaced by the chalky scent of old stone and the perfume of incense drifting lazily in temple courtyards. You're stepping softly now, on worn marble floors where echoes linger. Welcome to the sacred spaces, the temples, the shrines, the hushed alcoves where olive oil transcended the domestic and stepped fully into the divine. In the minds of the ancient Greeks, the gods weren't somewhere else, floating above the clouds and only checking in during disasters. No, the gods were here, present in statues, in flames, in certain trees and wells, and even particular breezes. So it makes sense that olive oil, which came from Athena's very own hands, remember that dusty beauty contest on the Acropolis, would be treated with holy respect in these places. It wasn't just symbolic, it was a literal bridge between mortals and immortals. Let's start at the big leagues. The Parthenon, perched high on the Athenian Acropolis, glimmering with Pentelic marble and flooded with sun. Inside, once upon a time, stood a statue of Athena Parthenos, so enormous her spear tip gleamed from the sea miles away. Crafted by the sculptor Phidias, this statue wasn't just for looking at. It was living myth. Made of gold and ivory, she wore a helmet, held Nike, Victory, in her palm, and beside her was a tall container filled with, you guessed it, sacred olive oil. This wasn't your average drizzle over lentils bottle. This oil was the good stuff. Clarified, perfumed, purified through ritual. Every year during the Panathenaic Games, olive oil from Athena's sacred grove was awarded to victors, but a portion was also reserved for temple use. It was poured into lamps that burned continuously before the statue of the goddess, meant to honor her presence and symbolize the eternal flame of the city's favor. And if the lamp ever went out, not a good sign. It would have been seen as a cosmic frown. There were other temples, of course, big ones, small ones, tucked into hillsides or crowning busy market squares. In all of them, olive oil had roles to play. It fueled the lamps that flickered in the shadows, yes, but also anointed the altars, polished sacred statues, and was poured in libations to seal oaths and purify sacrifices. It was used to wash gods who could not bathe. Think about that. Instead of water, which was fleeting and impure, oil was used to cleanse the divine. It didn't just make marble shine, it restored spiritual clarity. You kneel beside an ancient priestess now. Her hands move in practiced rhythm, dipping a linen cloth into scented oil and rubbing it over the arms of a statue of Demeter. She hums as she works, not words, just a sound that's half lullaby, half invocation. This is her daily task, and though no one watches, she believes it keeps the seasons turning. That's the thing about rituals. They don't need an audience, they just need faith and repetition. Now here's a quirky tidbit. Some temples reserved special blends of olive oil for healing purposes. In the temple of Asclepius, god of medicine, visitors slept overnight hoping for dreams sent by the god, a process known as incubation. Before lying down, they might anoint themselves with olive oil infused with herbs or honey, hoping it would open the senses to divine messages. These mixtures were kept in labeled jars, and inscriptions suggest Some even had mild hallucinogenic properties. So yes, the ancient Greeks basically had a spiritual spa night kit, but not everyone agreed on what made olive oil sacred. Historians still argue whether the oil itself was considered holy, or if it became sacred only through ritual contact with gods or temples. Some ancient texts treat it like consecrated ground. Once it touches the altar, it's no longer for humans. Others suggest that any olive oil, as long as it came from a sacred grove or had been blessed by a priest, could be used in offerings. There were rules, but also local variations. What passed as reverent in Athens might be heresy in Delphi. Let's not forget the Eleusinian mysteries, those incredibly secret rites held in honor of Demeter and Persephone. What we do know is that olive oil played a role. It was likely used in purification before initiation, and perhaps also during the nighttime procession from Athens to Eleusis. Torches carried during the ritual would have been lit with olive oil. Imagine hundreds of them bobbing through the dark, flickering gold against olive trees. No one spoke. What happened during the climax of the mysteries remains, well, a mystery, sworn to secrecy under pain of death. But the olive oil? It was there, whispering through flame. Beyond Greece proper, the use of olive oil in sacred rituals spread with colonization and conquest. In Cyrene, in North Africa, settlers from Thera brought their traditions with them, planting olive trees and erecting altars where local and Greek gods merged. In Sicily and southern Italy, sanctuaries to Apollo and Hera absorbed olive oil into their ceremonies. It traveled farther than most soldiers, more faithfully than most myths. The oil also moved metaphorically. In the Homeric epics, when Odysseus returns home and is finally reunited with Penelope, he doesn't rush to embrace her. No, first he bathes. And the final touch? Anointment with olive oil. It is symbolic rebirth. He enters her chambers not as a ragged stranger, but as the husband of her youth, made whole again by the oil of his homeland. In this moment, the oil is more than hygiene. It is identity restored, memory reignited, and love reignited. There are hints in ancient legal codes and city statutes that olive oil theft, especially from temple stores, was treated as a religious crime, not just theft. If you stole oil from Athena's grove, you weren't just a thief, you were a violator of the city's soul. The Areopagus court in Athens handled such cases with gravity, and the penalties could include exile or even death. That's how serious they were about oil. And one final poetic thread. It was believed that even the smell of sacred olive oil could offer protection. Some carried little oil-soaked pouches on journeys. Others rubbed a drop behind the ear before speaking in public. It was a way to court favor, calm nerves, or perhaps just remind yourself that Athena might be listening. Whether or not it worked, it made you feel a little less alone. So now, under the soft glow of temple torches and the scent of burning oil, you feel something settle in your chest, a quiet, timeless peace. In every flame and ritual and gentle anointing, the Greeks found ways to connect with the divine, not through grand miracles, but through everyday grace. And at the center of that grace always was the humble golden oil. You wake up in this half-dreaming state to the unmistakable sound of sandals slapping against packed earth. Not your own, but a whole procession, steady, rhythmic, with the faint jingling of bronze vessels and the sharp scent of pressed olives. You're walking now, woven into a crowd of Athenians, spectators, and athletes alike, flowing down the Panathenaic Way. It's festival time, and nothing, not war, not famine, not even bad weather, was allowed to dull the sparkle of Athens During the Panathenaic Games, held every 4 years in honor of Athena, these games were more than sport. They were civic pride, divine adoration, and a marketplace of ideas, performances, and social climbing all in one. And olive oil? Well, this is where it strutted onto center stage with the poise of a supermodel and the value of a small fortune. First, let's paint the scene. Temples garlanded in laurel and ribbons, the agora bursting with vendors selling honey cakes, figs, and amulets, acrobats tumbling through the dust, while philosophers pontificate over grilled sardines. In the great stadium, men, naked, muscled, oiled from head to heel, are preparing to run, to wrestle, to throw the discus in front of judges, gods, and gawking admirers. You notice how the sunlight catches on their skin. Not sweat, not grease, but olive oil. It gleams like armor. Here's your historical anchor. Winners of these games didn't receive gold or laurel wreaths, but amphorae of Athena's sacred olive oil. Tons of it, literally. Each victor in a major event could win dozens of tall, painted amphorae, filled to the brim with the prized oil from the sacred groves of the Academy, trees that were said to be direct descendants of Athena's gift. This wasn't just payment, it was myth-made material. Winning was like being kissed by a goddess and handed a small trade empire. Now here's the fun bit. Athletes didn't just use the oil on their skin for looks. They believed it prepared the body and soul for the ordeal of sport. Massaged in before exercise, it helped loosen muscles. But it was also used afterward, scraped off with a curved tool called a strigil, along with the dust and sweat of exertion. This oily mixture, weirdly enough, was collected in jars and sold to fans who believed it had magical or medicinal properties. Yes, you heard that right. Ancient sports memorabilia was goop scraped off your favorite wrestler. Some scholars suggest these collected oils were used in healing balms. Others think they were burned as offerings, or even consumed in tiny drops as a sort of heroic tincture. Historians still argue whether the practice was widespread or just a quirky side hustle among apothecaries trying to make drachmae off gladiator grime. Either way, it's oddly touching and a little gross. The amphorae given to winners were beautiful in their own right. Black figure pottery, painted with scenes of the event and a standardized inscription. From the games at Athens. They served as both trophies and shipping containers. If you didn't want to keep the oil, you could sell it. Some athletes became wealthy just from the resale. Others distributed the oil to their families and communities, transforming personal glory into shared abundance. You imagine one champion walking into his village, cart full of amphorae behind him, greeted by cheers and outstretched hands. The oil, again, becomes a social thread. Even in events like poetry or music competitions, prizes might include a smaller allotment of olive oil, less flashy, but still sacred. It was a universal reward, not gold, not jewels. Olive oil. Because in a world ruled by divine narratives and practical needs, oil was both reverent and useful. The gods approved, and so did your stomach. Now let's step back and think of the trees. The sacred olive groves weren't just symbolic, they were heavily guarded assets. The Academy's trees, for instance, were protected by law. You couldn't cut them. You couldn't even prune them without permission. If a tree was damaged, the city-state might launch a full investigation. Rumor has it that one entire magistrate council was exiled after failing to prevent the death of several trees. Some say it was an accident. Others whisper corruption. The truth? Still debated. These trees were so venerated that their oil was considered qualitatively different. thicker, greener, richer. And this oil went directly into the amphorae given at the Panathenaic Games. Winning that prize meant carrying a part of Athens itself, its very essence, back to your home city or island. For colonial Greeks, this wasn't just oil. It was the motherland in liquid form. Imagine receiving that amphora in Sparta, Rhodes, or Syracuse. You wouldn't just sell it. You might keep it, display it. Tell your children about the day you stood oiled and glorious before the eyes of Athena. Let's not skip the aesthetics. Athletes didn't apply oil by slathering it on. It was ritualized. An attendant might do it, often a young boy or family member. The act was intimate, respectful, and almost sacred in tone. Oil was warmed, sometimes scented, always massaged in with care. It was part of the transformation from citizen to competitor, from mortal to near divine. You weren't just entering the games, you were stepping into myth. And when the event was done, the sweat and dust wiped away. The winner declared. The amphora awarded. What then? A feast, of course. Roasted meats, flatbreads, honeyed dates, and pitchers of wine. The oil was everywhere, drizzled on dishes, lit in lamps, rubbed onto tired muscles. It punctuated both triumph and rest, celebration and recovery. It was the taste of glory and the scent of peace. Back in the crowd, you overhear two spectators debating which wrestling style is superior, Cretan grip or Theban stance. Another argues that a certain runner uses too much oil, making him slippery and unfair. Yet another is just here for the wine and free olives. You smile because nothing's changed. Human competitiveness, pettiness, awe, they're all still here, alive in the dusty stadium under the sun. As the sun dips behind the city's silhouette and the cheers fade, you feel that unmistakable thread again. The olive oil connecting the divine and the daily. The athlete's body, the amphora's shine, the priestess's libation, the kitchen's stew, all bound by this golden liquid. Tonight, the gods are pleased, and so, it seems, is everyone else. The sun has long since dipped below the horizon now, leaving only the low thrum of cicadas and the flicker of oil lamps casting golden halos on cracked stone. The streets are quieter, the feast finished, and the athletes either asleep or still recounting their glory in half-drunken verse. But your journey through the life of olive oil isn't over yet. Tonight, you're stepping into the realm of secrets, the whispered about, and the things hidden in shadowy corners of both kitchens and temples. Because olive oil, as sacred and humble as it seems, had a double life. You duck under a low wooden beam into the back room of a workshop, where a woman in a linen chiton, let's call her Thaleia, is lighting a small dish of oil with a practiced hand. She's not making stew. She's preparing an aphrodisiac. Yes, that's right. Olive oil had a seductive side too. Mixed with honey, cinnamon, crushed rose petals, or even exotic resins imported from Arabia, olive oil became the base for sensual ointments and so-called love charms. These weren't just perfumes, though they smelled divine. They were believed to warm the body and heighten attraction, especially when massaged onto the skin in certain patterns. One spell fragment even mentions rubbing oil mixed with saffron and goose fat behind the knees. Odd? Absolutely. Effective? Well, no one seemed to complain. In fact, aphrodisiac blends were such a thing in late classical Athens that some women and quite a few men developed reputations for their signature concoctions. These weren't the scandalous courtesans of comic plays, but clever businesswomen who knew their herbs, their oils, and their customer base. Their recipes were never written down, of course. Secrets like those died with their creators or were passed only to favored apprentices. There's a fringe theory among modern classicists that these blends weren't just about sensual pleasure, but also power, control. To be the person with the most desired scent was to command a room before speaking a word, and olive oil was the canvas. It held the aroma, slowed the burn of essential ingredients, and glided over skin like a promise. Not every oil blend had such intimate intentions. Some were made for sleep. Imagine a vial of olive oil mixed with poppy seed extract, rubbed into the soles of your feet on a restless night. That's real historical practice, not just folk medicine, but something inscribed on Etruscan and Greek tablets alike. Sleep, it turns out, has always been elusive. And olive oil, when used wisely, was a doorway to dreams. You wander now into a quieter place, a private altar tucked into the corner of a household courtyard. The lamp here is small, and the air smells of dried laurel and thyme. In many Greek homes, oil lamps weren't just for light. They were part of daily offerings to Hestia, goddess of the hearth. A few drops of oil, a whispered word of thanks, and the promise of safety for another day. It was domestic magic, the kind practiced without fanfare. Women did it in silence, children imitated it with reverence, and men passed by pretending not to notice. But everyone believed it mattered. And there were darker uses too. In binding spells, those little lead curse tablets tucked under stones or thrown into wells, olive oil was sometimes mentioned as the medium through which names were whispered into flame. Pouring oil over a fire while reciting someone's name was believed to tie them to your will, especially if the fire crackled or flared. Historians still argue whether these rituals were private acts of desperation or part of underground cult practice. Either way, oil made them possible. Even funerals, those solemn farewells, relied on it. Bodies were washed and anointed in olive oil before burial or cremation, not just to preserve the flesh a little longer, but to honor the soul. The oil made the corpse radiant, even in death, and the scent, often mixed with myrrh or lavender, was said to comfort the living. You can almost imagine the final moments before the pyre is lit, the flick of an amphora, the hush of oil soaking into linen wrappings, and the scent rising with the flames like a prayer. But not all these stories are about tradition. Some are about resistance. During the Peloponnesian War, when food became scarce and people's faith in the gods was fraying, there are reports, fragmentary mind you, that certain rebel groups used olive oil not to worship, but to mock. They'd light lamps upside down, smear oil on enemy statues, and create crude parodies of temple rituals. Was it political protest? Social despair? Historians argue both sides, but it proves something important. Olive oil wasn't just sacred. It was cultural language, and like all languages, it could be bent, broken, reimagined. Here's something delightfully odd. Olive oil also shows up in early Greek ghost lore. Yes, ghosts. One passage from a 3rd century BCE fragment claims that if a household was haunted, you could drive the spirit away by burning oil infused with crushed bay leaf and fish scales. Why fish scales? No one knows. The instructions end abruptly, like the scribe got spooked halfway through. Still, you imagine someone trying it, holding their breath as the smoke spirals up, whispering for the dead to let go. And perhaps, weirdest of all, there's a rare vase image, found in what was likely a magician's dwelling in Boeotia, showing a masked figure pouring oil over a set of stones arranged in a spiral. The surrounding symbols don't match any known deity. Some scholars think it's a lost ritual. Others think it's just performance art. The oil, again, was the binding agent, the way you turn intention into action. Now, you lean against a doorway and watch the flickering flame of a single oil lamp fighting off the night. The air is cool, there's time on the breeze, and you're aware, maybe more than ever, of how something as simple as oil can hold the weight of the sacred, the sensual, the strange. It's been a healer, a trophy, a weapon, a balm. It slipped through wars, whispered in spells, and carried the prayers of the hopeful across centuries. The olive tree may have sprung from Athena's challenge, but its oil lived 100 other lives behind the myths. And you've wandered through them all, quietly, reverently, sometimes chuckling, always curious. You close your eyes now, and you can still smell the oil. Warm, nutty, faintly spiced. It lingers on your fingers, in the folds of your cloak, in the memory of 1,000 ancient hands that used it before you. And somehow, even with all you now know, its histories, its scandals, its slippery metaphors, you still feel the same calm every time it burns beside you. Because olive oil, strange as it seems, really was the heartbeat of ancient life. And tonight, it pulses gently in your dreams. Now the final threads are weaving together. You're sitting on a weather-worn bench at the edge of the Acropolis, legs dangling over the city's soft hush. And there's an amphora beside you, unfinished, unpainted, its belly still slick with fresh oil. The night air is mild, filled with the slow breath of sleeping hearths. And at last, we return to her, Athena, the accidental inventor of olive oil shampoo. You remember, of course, how it started. A goddess's gift in the heat of a divine sibling squabble. A tree born from stone, a liquid golden as dawn soaking through everything it touched. But in this moment, you realize her gift was more than just a plant. It was a blueprint, a toolkit, a lifestyle. She didn't just give you olives. She handed you a substance so adaptable, so beloved, that it has flavored every step of your journey. And that includes what happened when it met your hair. Because in the end, that silly little footnote of a discovery, the olive oil shampoo, was never just a joke. It was real, it was practical, and it was surprisingly widespread. Ancient texts mention hair treatments, scalp massages, and ceremonial grooming rituals, always with oil, always with intention. Even Homer mentions the sweet smell of gleaming hair anointed with perfumed oil as a sign of youth and strength. Hair, in myth and medicine alike, reflected health, power, and the gods' favor. And olive oil was the bridge to that divine polish. You walk now into a bathhouse, the kind found in cities like Delphi, Corinth, and of course, Athens. Not Roman style with towering vaults and steam chambers, but simpler, more intimate. Terracotta floors, bronze basins, and a carved shelf holding tiny jugs of oil. The women here are laughing, not loudly, but with that low, relaxed hum that only appears when you've fully let go of the day. They're brushing, braiding, and rinsing each other's hair, rinsing it not with soap, but with warm water followed by olive oil, combed in with fingers or carved wooden picks. The oil works its way in slowly. It softens. It nourishes. It coats each strand with a subtle gleam. No foam, no chemicals. Just patience and shine. You imagine Athena, invisible in the corner, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at the edge of her lip as she watches. She never planned this. It wasn't part of the myth, but even a goddess can appreciate a good hair day. And it wasn't just vanity. The oil protected against lice, against sun damage. It kept the scalp from cracking in the brutal, dry heat of summer. Soldiers used it in the field, along with vinegar, as a sort of rinse. Priests applied it before festivals, smoothing their beards with a reverence that blurred hygiene and holiness. Even oracles used it, sometimes before trance sessions, sometimes after, to ground the soul, according to one curious fragment found at a site near Dodona. Historians still debate whether that was literal or poetic. The answer, predictably, is probably both. There's a vase you once saw, maybe in a museum, maybe only in your dream, that shows a woman pouring oil onto her hair as a servant holds up a mirror. The painting is delicate, the detail extraordinary, each curl outlined, each drop of oil a tiny bead of light. In the corner of the image is a tiny owl, barely noticeable. You'd miss it unless you were looking, but there it is, Athena's symbol, tucked into the background of the mundane. Because that's where she lives, really. Not in the thunderous marble or the bloody battlefields, but in the everyday alchemy, in the way oil turns coarse hair soft, in how it soothes a burn, in the gentle scrape of a strigil after a long run, in the way your mother once dabbed your forehead with it when you were sick. Athena's gift wasn't flashy, it was constant. And now, as the story winds down, you pass a mirror yourself. You look into it, not expecting anything, but there you are, your face smeared faintly with the sheen of myth, hair a little tousled maybe, but touched by 1,000 years of whispered rituals. You smell of time, stone, old sun, and olive wood. You've been everywhere tonight, from Mount Olympus to the wrestling grounds, from sacred groves to dimly lit kitchens, and somehow you still carry that scent, that softness. Because olive oil doesn't leave easily. That's part of the joke. Try washing your hands after handling it. You'll see. It clings, like memory, like myth, like the stories you've just walked through. And so, we come to rest. Wind down 300 words. Your breath slows now, keeping pace with the gentle rhythm of distant crickets and the soft rustle of leaves stirred by a night breeze. The lights of ancient Athens twinkle below you, scattered like lazy stars left behind by a distracted god. Everything has quieted. Even the temples, so full of prayer and bustle during the day, seem to exhale with you. You lean back against warm stone, feeling its patient weight cradle you. Somewhere, far away, the last oil lamp is being extinguished. A little whisper of smoke rises, dances, and disappears. It smells like lavender and something older, something earthbound. As your eyelids grow heavier, you can still taste the stories in the back of your throat, the slippery shine of legends, the warmth of forgotten rituals, the laughter of women brushing oil into each other's hair without a second thought. All those threads, tied neatly into a single olive-slick strand, tender, lasting. Your hands rest gently on your stomach. Your breath is slow, even. And now, your mind drifts gently away from the city, from the goddess, from the games and the gardens. It slips into something deeper, a quiet place where myth and comfort braid themselves around you like sleep. You don't need to remember everything. That's the beauty of it. The stories will wait. The oil will still glisten tomorrow. For now, just let the warmth of the night carry you away. Shh. Sleep. You've earned it. End of story. Sweet dreams.